knows nothing, can understand nothing. Plunge deeper into the darkness, and your heart will grow even stronger.
Now we're going to dive in to the Sleeping Realm theory. This theory there's a Google Doc of it, and it was put together by a few people, but mostly it looks like three people. Cal, who is at CQUAER on Twitter. Niku, who was at Niku Soon with TSUNE, and Gemma, who is at Sorweekus. And that they'll be all listed in the description for you guys. And they had more credits of people that helped them out with it, so be sure to look at that.
Thank you to everyone who.
Thank you to everyone involved in this. This is Jason and I have read this, and it was like a good read. It was like a
if you're like someone who really likes those theories, like maybe you look into like Star Wars theories, like Jar Jar Binks is Sith Lord, and you're like, oh my gosh. If you like any of those speculation theories, but ones that are maybe more realistic, and it's about one of your favorite games of all time, Kingdom Hearts, then you will love this theory.
Yes. Okay, so this theory is predicated on that when we play Kingdom Hearts 3, our experience is the second timeline of that.
That's why it's already happened.
It's already happened. And this second timeline takes place within the Sleeping Realm, or in other words, a dream. And that's not to be confused with it's all a dream, it didn't matter / happen. It's more akin to an alternate timeline, right?
Okay.
So I'm trying to like... I'm not going to read this word for word. I'm going to paraphrase some of it, because otherwise we'll be here all day. If you remember in Dream Drop Distance is actually really important to this theory. You visited dream worlds, right?
Yeah.
So, like, you went to the Hunchback of Notre Dame world, whatever. It was something French or something. Some French place. And that was a dream world.
Sleeping French place.
Those worlds were worlds that fell into darkness.
Right.
So right before they fell into darkness, it made a copy of that world, basically. That's a dream world. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the Sleeping Realm. So this is like where those worlds are kept.
Okay.
Basically, the Sleeping Realm, it's a little different than dream worlds, I guess. Because dream worlds can't have Heartless in them.
Right.
Like in Dream Drop Distance, that's why you fought the Unversed.
Yes.
Yensid explains that, blah, blah, blah.
And that's why there's Dream Eaters and Nightmares.
Right. So, and then this is also very involved with Union Cross, because, as the way I understand it, Union Cross originally was a game called Kingdom Hearts Key.
Yep.
For mobile browsers, or it was a browser game, not mobile browser. Sorry, it was a browser game that you could just play on your computer.
Kind of click through.
Right, and then they shut that down and came up with Union Cross, which is a retelling of that story, but it's in the realm of sleep. It's
an alternate timeline.
telling of what happened. So, yeah, that's pretty interesting. I didn't know that going into this theory. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Okay. Important thing to remember with this theory is time and fate, and this is a quote from the theory here. Time and fate, as we understand it, are hard locked into place. If something is fated to happen, it's unavoidable and will absolutely guaranteed bet your bottom dollar come to be. And as young Xehanort says, you can move through time, but time itself is immovable.
Okay.
The only way we know to avoid fated events is essentially going on an alternate timeline or world line, which is something they reference in the secret reports in Kingdom Hearts 3.
Okay.
Where these events aren't destined to occur. Same world, slightly different fate. Unlike a dream world, an alternate world line is an entirely new timeline, even if within the realm of sleep. It continues past when the fated fall to darkness occurs simply because it wasn't fated.
Okay.
So, in Kingdom Hearts, when we see as foretold, darkness prevail, then light. That's how that timeline, that world line was supposed to go.
Right.
Everybody was supposed to die.
It was fated to happen.
It was fated
Nothing
to happen,
could stop it.
Yes.
Just like it was fated to happen for the Keyblade War to happen. Even though everyone was kind of trying to stop it, and then it was fated to happen, it was going to happen.
Right.
So, therefore, the Dandelions, they dive and they go to another world line, right?
Right.
So, and in the reports, Luju/Zigbar kind of talks about that, and that's something that is starting to come to fruition. Like right now, the storyline's being more updated. They're releasing more stuff for Union Cross, but you'll see how that parallels pretty closely with what this theory thinks about with Kingdom Hearts 3.
Here's the loose, too long, didn't read proposal of the timeline. Sora and company run through a most likely very different string of events the first time in the real world, timeline 1. 2. During the events of the Keyblade Graveyard, all fall to darkness, the demon tide or otherwise, just as the prophecy had foretold. Seen as fate tends to be hard locked into place, this will always carry to fruition, so simple time travel wouldn't change much of anything. 3. In this first timeline, Riku still performs an act of true love self-sacrifice, saving Sora's heart while the new 7 Princes of Heart keep Sora held together. We can't know much about the first timeline for sure, so this remains open. 4. With this, Sora is able to go to the final world, first visit, assumingly piece himself back together, and with the power of waking, put his whole heart into saving his friends. 5. This leads to the dive to the heart at the start of the game, now timeline 2 where we come in. This dive pulls everyone into a new world line within the realm of sleep to avoid the same fate at the hands of darkness. Completing the dive to the heart then drops Sora in the end of 2.9, timeline 2. We then play through KH3 through to the Keyblade Graveyard where everyone falls to darkness. We hit the final world, second visit, just as we see in game, and Sora is given a chance to save everybody's hearts since it isn't fated to end this way. Now they have this
graphic,
a visual aid, a graphic, which I'm going to put on screen if you're watching on YouTube. But basically, it shows the first timeline. Everybody falls to darkness. Sora goes to the final world. He dives and goes all the way back to the beginning through a layer of sleep, and then it's the game we play.
And that's able to happen because of Riku's sacrifice.
Right, and then at the end it says Xehanort Gay dies after decades-long marriage dispute, which I very much enjoy.
It wraps it up pretty
And what I
clearly.
really like about this theory is when I first read it, I was expecting to like have all the Ultimania knowledge kind of debunk some of it.
Yeah.
But they updated it with the Ultimania knowledge. So kudos to these guys. This is awesome stuff.
Right.
The Ultimania update on this says time travel at Keyblade Graveyard to save everyone's hearts has been confirmed by Nomura. Look, see where we said the second timeline went save everyone, time travel rewind, Xehanort Gay dies after decade-long marriage dispute? That's been confirmed. Including the Xehanort Gay dies after decade-long marriage dispute.
Nomura confirmed that he gay died.
And they asked Nomura this. When we leave the final world, we are back to the point just before Sora and his friends were defeated. Why is that? And Nomura said, the power of awakening is essentially the power to put sleeping hearts back to the way they were. But the impact of forcing his friends' fading hearts back to the way they were rewrote reality and created a singularity. The rewrite caused the chronology. Why can't I read today? Chronology in which they were destroyed to have never happened. Strange enough, even though you can see we called it in our visual timeline, this is what everyone keeps saying debunks the theory. We called it, dudes. The Ultimania backed us up here. Yeah, I don't get how people think that debunks the theory.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. So now the rest of this is a loose proposal, like we said, so take it with a grain of salt. Details can turn out to be wrong, of course, but it's the best we can do with what we understand. So we are confident in what we are confident is in that the game we play is within the realm of sleep. This isn't the first timeline events. Riku's act of sacrifice is likely the anchoring point in timeline divergence, as it happens both times. The final world is visited several times, seen by us or not, as stated by Chirthi.
Basically, they're saying this happened before. Like
Right.
We've seen something similar to this in Dream Drop Distance, and also in the chess game where it shows he takes the Sora chess piece, puts it back to the beginning
Because he's a
and
cheater.
The new ones pop up.
Because
the
he's
seven
a cheater.
lights.
That's important to
It's
point
stated,
out.
he's a cheater.
He is a cheater. And he says some light comes from the past. This line can mean several things. It could be the perspective of the lights from the first past timeline. It could mean anything to do with the past, like Kingdom Hearts Junior Cross, since the star designs are similar. We simply don't know, but it's important that 7 of them are there. Because those are the 7 people he saves
Right.
by going for their hearts. So the dive to the heart at the beginning of the game is actually the start of the second timeline that we play. Not that we play, but the second timeline. It's the timeline that we play. It's the second.
Right.
In the previous games, we're led into the dive to the heart tutorial with some kind of preamble, visual, or narrative. This time, for the first time, we've been dropped into it without anything signifying how or why. It's also always ended with whoever was doing the dive waking up afterwards. So what's otherwise a strange break in form, in fact, Sora's starting point for the game we actually play. And then what's interesting, and I didn't think about this, but at the beginning of the game, when you first see, you look like Kingdom Hearts 1 Sora.
Right.
And it says there are 7 hearts to save.
You're like,
I was like, oh,
okay.
the 7 Princesses of Heart, right? That's what I thought when I first played through the game.
Yeah.
But we didn't even...
They're just telling us, like, endgame stuff just
right
away.
Right, exactly. And I didn't think anything of it because I was just so excited to play Kingdom Hearts 3. So then, something I've pointed out before when we've been playing Kingdom Hearts, but the scene that happens once you pick your stats and everything is shot for shot the scene from Kingdom Hearts 1's movie where Riku is standing in the waves and he turns and holds his hand out.
Iconic scene.
The iconic scene. Except in this scene, Riku is replaced by just a light. A bright light. The ocean water has always been a symbol for darkness within the Kingdom Hearts universe, to the point that being in literal darkness is shown to be like water or drowning, and this time Riku is replaced with light. The literal light and the metaphorical darkness. Bonus, this could also imply Riku and his light had been with Sora watching over him from the very beginning of this journey, seen as Sora's first dive to the heart that we're shown, where Riku has been his dream eater. This is a good time to remember what Shirthi said just before sending Sora off.
He said, look for the light in the darkness.
Yes. Sora fights against the waves before being forcefully pulled away, in recurring example of what the heart, literally as he's in his own heart, wants versus fate, outside forces pulling you away. The waves pull him away, and as he tries to follow Riku's light, he ends up in the final world. So then there's another Ultimania update that they put in here. They saying it's confirmed important thing. The final world, a place very important to the story, appeared in the game, but what kind of world is it? And Nomura said, is a place where those just a step from death arrive connect to the Station of Waking. Up until now, the Station of Waking was always a dark place where the floor was made of stained glass, where the condition of the inside of one's heart could be shown. But in this case, I made the final world a place where I could show that more concretely, a place similar to a portal to people's respective hearts. Within the game, it said that sleep and death are intimately linked. So if one's heart were in a state of sleep and they found themselves in the Station of Waking, the idea is that if they moved on from there, they would find themselves in the final world.
So, like, the final world is a place where those hearts are to go to where they're like each heart has that dark stained glass place. Right? And that if they moved on from there, then they would be in the final world. So it's like final world is like death, kind of. Like it's like right before death, and then if you were in your Station of Waking, which is your stained glass area, that's basically like the step down from that. So it goes your stained glass place, then final world, then death.
They note here, which is important for later, that you save 7 hearts after that. Not after that, but like jumping ahead in the game.
When you're fighting the Lich.
When you're fighting the Lich. You save 7 hearts, and not one of them is Kairi. So now we're moving on to Kingdom Hearts 2.9. Big joke aside, this is when the game explicitly tells you that KH3 hasn't actually started yet. Before we even get to the actual KH3 title screen, we have an entire world first and Riku's first scene in the Realm of Darkness. It's important to keep in mind that these two things are happening at the same time. So what do we see of Sora and Riku? The two of them in a state of transition. Their old clothes, old hair, right before where the trajectory of their journey changes. It's a solid and helpful dividing point pre- and post-drop. But it also serves as a means to set up an important point, the power of love and the strength that comes with it. So, I want to say something right now that I think applies to this theory that they don't talk about. But when I was on the Suplex the Sticks podcast, shout out to those guys, they're awesome. They talked about how Olympus in general, the character models there, everything seemed, the graphics seemed just not as good as the rest of the game. And reading this theory, I almost feel like that was on purpose.
That makes sense.
Because our thought was, oh, that's the world they made first, and then they moved on, and whatever. But I don't know why they wouldn't update the graphics. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense.
Well, there's certain points where it seems like really polished, like in the cutscenes and stuff like that. The area where it's like raining and you're fighting the Rock Titan. But other than that, there's definitely some very different graphical things.
It's really weird. So they talk a lot about Riku and his love for Sora, that he has the motivation the strength to protect what matters. And what he means is to protect Sora, basically.
And it's a reference to what Terra says when he's getting the strength to protect what matters, and he was doing his, oh, you're now a Keyblade wielder to Riku, right? And it's really cool. They point out that there's like a progression with Riku, in that from the start he's like, oh, to protect what matters, and then in the English version, there's a little bit of a translation.
I have it pulled up right here.
Change, and that
Mickey says to him, basically the line is translated to, it's that you've grasped the strength to protect your important, cherished person, isn't it? So that's the line in Japanese, and they
it's
changed
very
the translation.
more specific.
And they
Same
relate this to Hercules and him talking about Meg, and they use the exact same phrase in Japanese. And Herc's got translated appropriately to person I love most, but in Riku's they changed it to protect what matters, right?
Mm-hmm. So in Birth by Sleep, he says the strength to protect what matters. He's 5. It's general, right? He doesn't know what he wants to protect. He's 5 years old, you know? In Dream Drop Distance, when waking Sora from slumber while answering questions about what's important to him, and all the canon answers about being about Sora, unsurprisingly, the phrase is appropriately upgraded to from stuff that matters to stuff that's precious. So it goes to stuff that matters, stuff that's precious, to the person that's most precious, like to him.
Right.
So he's figuring out, okay, this stuff I care about. No, this is stuff I really, really care about. And then, okay, more specifically, who he cares about.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's important because he realizes that, and then later in the game, he sacrifices himself to protect Sora. In Dream Drop Distance and Kingdom Hearts 3, he's doing stuff to protect Sora.
Right. And this turns out to matter later. We're not just talking about this for no reason, I promise. So then we're going to move on to the drop. So if both Sora and Riku's segments are happening concurrently, when and where do they drop into sleep? Luckily, Riku's is incredibly easy to spot. After all, his hair didn't change because the Heartless were hungry. Like any and every example of starting up in a dream sleeping world, you start by waking up. And for Riku specifically, that is not the only sign of being in the realm of sleep. His hair changes to be way more similar to what it was in Dream Drop Distance.
It basically looks like a HD kind of upgraded version of
Right. Of his hair. And his hair changes tremendously. And the same change happens in Dream Drop Distance. And they'd be like, oh, well, he's younger Riku now. And it's like, no, he's not. His hair just changed. You know, it's a weird thing in Dream Drop Distance. Anyway, that's his Dream Eater hairstyle. Okay.
And some people will be like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's just a game. Well, like, that's why they don't notice, right? It's just an upgrade because as time goes on, their hair is going to change and people won't.
Well, and the point they make
right?
to combat that, too, is that
yeah,
later Axel distinctly comments on Kairi's change in hairstyle, which shows characters in the world typically notice details like this. But Mickey doesn't say shit about Riku's hair.
right.
Okay. So basically they're saying when Riku gets swallowed up by Aqua in the Realm of Darkness, that is when he drops to sleep. And they touch on this later, but basically he does the same exact animation as you would in Dream Drop Distance when you're dropping to change to Sora.
Yeah, so for those who haven't played but have watched cutscenes and stuff, basically you would have a timer, like a countdown, where you would play as one of the characters, either Sora or Riku, and once that timer got all the way down, the game would basically pause you right where you were with that character and then switch to the other character, and you start playing them. There's a very specific noise and animation that happens when you're dropping to the other character. And Riku does literally that exact animation. There's that sound. He changes his appearance to be exactly what he looked like in Dream Drop Distance. And so honestly, there was so much going on that I did not even question this one bit.
No.
He's fighting these Heartless, he gets swallowed, and then
he talks to somebody.
Yeah.
And then he goes into that animation, and I was just like, oh, he's getting swallowed by darkness, but it's literally the drop animation.
Yeah, and then he wakes up and his hair's changed and
his keyblade's broken.
Right. So
yeah.
it's very like you should be like, whoa, what's going on? This looks like Dream Drop Distance, but because there was so much hype and we're like, oh my god, what's going on? That it just flies under the radar.
Right. And right now I'm actually gonna take that clip of they play a clip lining up the two sounds, and so that clip is gonna play right now.
May your heart
Who are you? Who are you?
may your heart
Isn't that crazy, that clip?
It's
It's
the
nutty.
same.
It's nutty. Anyway, Sora, when Sora drops. So you don't actually see Sora drop specifically, but we do see an overlap point. It tends to go forgotten since it's so early in the game and happens very suddenly, but it's the last possible second we see of Olympus as a world, right when Xigbar goes to say an important phrase. So it plays the same loud noise that happens to Riku when he drops. And he says, may your heart, and then it drops. And I thought that was just for, like, dramatic effect. Like, that's a scene I forgot about until, sorry, I hit my mic, until we find out that Xigbar, spoilers, is Luju, right?
Yeah.
It's a scene I forgot about. And I remember going to Jason afterwards and going,
Dude,
they told us
us
that he's Luju. How else would he know that phrase, right? But they were also doing something different here because I was like, why? I'm even then I was like, why is there this dramatic hard noise that when he says it, you know?
Yeah. It just
Um,
boom.
Yeah. There's a timeline here that they have. They show Sora and Riku both in their worlds, and I'll have this up on the screen on YouTube, but and when their drop point is, and then when they end up in the sleeping realm.
Yeah.
The realm of sleep. They talk about the logo thing here. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And they don't really have a point to this. So I'm not going to go too in depth. But if you watch, if you have this open, I know I think this is still kind of bullshit because I think it's just a gradient. But if you watch, it purposely doesn't shine, you know? And so their point is, yeah, this probably doesn't mean anything, but
It definitely could.
it definitely could, and don't be close-minded about these theory stuff because Nomura does some weird shit.
Basically, like, pointing out, like, hey, there's, like, multiple layers to it, but the common theory is, like, oh, it's not Kingdom Hearts 3 because it's not full, right? Like, there's part of it that's missing, there's part of it that's not light.
Right.
And they go on to say that this could signify something with Kairi, and they have a lot of different things that they talk about with Kairi we'll get into.
Yep.
Basically saying, hey, even just this title is showing you not all is well, not all is what you think it is.
Right. So moving on, they talk about why would we go into a dream world? And their answer is to avoid death. After 17 years, Kingdom Hearts introduces the concept of true death, when the heart and body perish together. It's said that a person is made of the heart, body, and the soul. We know well the heart and the body. The soul, on the other hand, hasn't been a big factor until now. The soul itself is the literal life force of a person. It's the heart being cast out of the body that makes heartless, and the soul in the empty body that forms nobodies. Dream worlds are introduced in DDD, and one of the first things they're introduced to is a safe haven, a refuge for lost souls. Joshua, Jason's favorite character, says as much. He says, something happened that brought their existence to an end. I gathered up the very last remnants of their dreams and looked for a place to give them refuge. It was then this world appeared to answer my call, to keep them from fading altogether. Here I thought they might have a chance, that the pieces of their dreams could make them whole again. The world ends with UCAS died real and true proper deaths in their game. Joshua, looking for some way to fix this, brought them to a dream to heal. This is also exampled in Union Cross. When your player is dying in the Keyblade graveyard, you're visited by Ephemer and Scold, your Dandelion leader friends. This is actually a flashback, one of the memories held from the first timeline of the Keyblade War. They try and save you by bringing your heart into the New World line into a dream. It's also worth noting that your player character in Union Cross, as well as Neku and his friends, remember nothing. Only the Dandelion leaders who were entrusted with this knowledge, the Dream Eaters, and characters like Joshua with special powers, retain their memories. So now we're moving on. That's an important distinction that they're talking about, where soul is something that matters, and in order to save your soul, sometimes you have to go into a dream in the Kingdom Hearts world. But now we're moving on to a section called Kairi's Fate. So Kairi is a big part of this theory, and I think that's good because a lot of people think Kairi's unimportant, and I don't know if
hate on her for
I don't know if
it.
she's any more important in this theory, but it's pretty interesting where they go with this. Kairi, for all she sadly doesn't get to do, is one of the bigger mysteries in all this. With a suspicious death, a missing heart, and potent symbolism at her disposal, it's safe to say she plays a bigger role than we're being presented. Is there any one reason for why a dream? It would be this. The intro is predictive.
Predicative.
Predicative. Let's intro with the intro. Throughout Kingdom Hearts, the cinematic intros have usually served as an interesting and artistic retelling of the events so far, usually as a means to generally refresh the story, while also showcasing important emotional scenes. The exception being KH1, where it's mostly predictive and serves as a kind of prophetic dream, seeing as we didn't have any passage on. The Kingdom Hearts 3 intro sucks as a recap. At best, it's a watered-down version of the Dream Drop intro, with a sprinkling of chess and a spicy little dash of Xehanort. Spicy. Seen as it skips over pivotal games like Chain of Memories, Stopping Dead Before Recoded, and most importantly, Dream Drop Distance, the direct lead to KH3, this intro sucks as a recap. It's because it's not supposed to be. Like Kingdom Hearts 1, this intro is predictive. It serves a narrative purpose, functioning under the premise of it being Xehanort's game. It's what he's planned, schemed, and interfered in over the years. We're seeing his setup. We never see any counterplay. We never see any of the pieces moved aside from his own, just what he wants and where he wants it. The key piece he's trying to get to is Sora. The key piece he uses to get it is Kairi.
Oh, man.
Kairi, aware of it or not, is instrumental in making things happen. The long and short of it is, the intro shows us events to come. Xehanort's control over events and Kairi's inescapable fate. So what's Xehanort's plan, Jason?
What is it?
Xehanort's plan, what is it?
Is to get to Sora.
Right.
And to get Kingdom Hearts.
Right. So, the one thing I thought was really interesting, and I have a GIF of it here, which I'm not going to have, but basically, there's the part of the intro where it's like going by all the chess pieces.
Like spinning.
And then it stops and centers on Kairi's chess piece.
The
Papu
star,
fruit.
and then it turns into the Papu fruit.
Well,
And
the star
she's-
represents the Papu fruit.
Yeah, and she's hand feeding it.
Yeah.
In the cave symbol.
Yeah. So they reference Ansem Port 11, and I'm just going to read the excerpt from it. I've chosen a girl. I don't know if she holds the princess's powers, but I will find out. She may lead me to the key bearer. I shall set her free and observe.
Dun dun
Dun,
dun.
dun, dun.
That's from KH1.
That's from KH1, guys.
Basically,
So, in-
he had Kairi and set her free
To try and find Sora.
because he was like, "This Princess of Heart is gonna find a Keyblade."
But that's also back when we thought there was one Keyblade wielder.
Yeah.
And I think Nomura thought there was one Keyblade wielder.
Yeah.
Anyway, in Dream Drop Distance, young Xehanort is explaining how they call him Young Master Xehanort throughout this document, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
Just call him Young Xehanort. He's not Master yet. He's explaining how they pulled this off, and we get a very missable hint. How did he know I would be here today? Simple. Young Xehanort says nothing but simple before there's a loud noise and the door swings open to the heart of the world. And Kairi, all we get an answer is Sora yelling Kairi's name before she phases through him and falls deeper into the nightmare. Kairi is an unfortunate piece caught in a cruel game. Within this game, the few major things Kairi's involved in the intro actually, I'm just reading it for words, sorry, actually play out within KH3 as their few focus scenes. This paints the idea that these key events were planned for or needed to happen. These key events being, 1, the cave drawing, of which they make a very big point to show the drawing itself and then it be completed. 2, leading Sora out of the darkness. Cleverly disguised as callbacks, they just so happen to tell us exactly what she does within the game itself. Following on this, Sora is freed and opens the door for everyone else to follow. This too happens pretty directly in the game as Sora's return from the darkness results in saving everyone else as a result. So they're talking about after you save all 7 hearts, Kyrie's kind of waiting for you in that like light speed looking tunnel,
Yeah.
and you didn't have to save her for whatever reason. 3, the final battle. The ending scene involving Kyrie continues this pattern. It starts with her and Sora reuniting on the beach, a la the end of KH2. Finally reuniting after near constant separation, they run towards each other only for darkness to strike. Every shot of this purple lightning strikes, darkness is at play, whether it's influencing Xehanort himself or indicating his influence and plan. It goes off here, sprung like a trap. The camera zooms out, showing them helpless, small, and still separate. Showing us the chessboard, the game he's had control over since the beginning, and how he worked to get these 2 pieces here. They are literally surrounded with no means of defense. This is more or less exactly what Xehanort needs. And then Donald and Goofy show up because they're dope.
They're the boys.
So basically, what they're saying is the intro movie is showing the trap to catch Sora by using Kyrie. And in the intro, they talk about how it's constantly showing them being separated and that they're star-crossed, which is a Shakespeare term.
Right. Star-crossed lovers.
Star-crossed lovers, Romeo and Juliet, where they're just not meant to be, but they want to be.
Right.
To be or not to be.
That is the question.
They talk about the Papu fruit scene because Sora seems really weird in it. And then Sora, I didn't notice this watching it. But
I was looking for it too.
Sora takes a bite. They don't show him doing it, but his Papu fruit clearly is missing a chunk that the one that she's holding towards him, and she don't take no bite. Kyrie don't take no bite. They use the word mount here, and I like that.
They recreate the cave drawing,
Right.
basically.
So why didn't Kyrie take a bite, Jason?
Well,
We don't know.
Well, there's a few speculations. Well, and that's like there's also where like she doesn't eat the ice cream and stuff like that. So people are like, is this really even Kyrie? What is going on? And then they also very specifically quote the scene where she says, "It's a good luck charm so that we won't be separated again."
Wow.
Then they also talk about in the Ultimania, they talked to Sora's voice actor, and they recorded 2 versions of that Papu fruit scene. One of them being where they shared, where like they actually did share it, and then one where they weren't sharing Papu fruit. And so it seems like both of those ideas were being played with to where they don't end up sharing the Papu fruit, and that maybe they do, maybe they don't, maybe they're rejected. Like maybe they reject each other with the Papu fruit, or they go along with it. And then now this is going to get us back to our discussion about the KH3 logo, and how very clearly it shows everyone standing like in the final world, kind of with the Kingdom Hearts giant heart in the sky being reflected down on top of them. And then the KH3 symbol, like, fading on top of them. Clearly, one of them being on top of Riku, one of them being on top of Sora, and one of them being on top of Kyrie. Like, the 3 Roman numerals, right? Like I. One's on Riku, one's on Sora. And then the third one is the one that's on Kyrie, and that's actually the one that's not complete. And so that's why a lot of people think that it was specific symbolism that they used to show that something, that either she is just missing light or that something is wrong. And that's like something that I think we've talked about before, where we're like, wait, if Kyrie is one of those 7 lights, like Keyblade wielders, and Xehanort needs someone to fight, a light to fight the darkness to make that final Keyblade to open Kingdom Hearts, then why didn't it forge when he kills Kyrie, right?
Right.
And so that's another thing that really points to Kyrie not being
Genuine?
Either genuine. There's a lot of things. People are just like, no one knows, like it could be that it's not really Kyrie. It's not that version of Kyrie. Like something happened with their transitioning hearts with Shion taking over being that wielder of light. And when she gets killed, she fades into like water, ice kind of thing.
She crystallizes.
Yeah. Very similar to how when Shion dies in 358 over 2 days. No heart comes out, and whenever they've shown death of somebody who has a heart in previous games, their heart is what the camera focuses on and follows up, but we don't see any heart. She just kind of crystallizes. And so that's another thing to be like, okay, well, if she doesn't have a heart, it makes sense as to why these things aren't adding up.
And then we don't have to save her heart when the Lich takes everybody else's heart.
Yeah.
And they try to do some, Kairi special bullshit like they always do, but I don't think that's what's happening.
Right. And another point that they make, so you could say, okay, Ansem sees that this girl's special in Kingdom Hearts 1, releases her, but he's already probably done experiments and stuff on her, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why she's in Hollow Bastion at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And then forms that connection with Sora, and she ends up being a very key part, like, oh, so Shion is Sora's memory of Kairi and stuff like that, and that those memories are very important for his heart and stuff like that, right? And are part of what makes him strong. And then in the toy box world, there's something that they go over where even if they're toys and they don't have hearts, how do they have these connections, right, that are strong enough to bring them to life and all this stuff? And that's another theory that they're like, oh, they brought this up in not just to make it so that, oh, now we have a reason to go to Toy Story World. There's a reason why there's organization, is to be like, hey, maybe Kairi is similar in that aspect, that she doesn't really have a heart, but there's those connections through memories and stuff like that that make her come to life.
Right.
So it's pretty like, what the hell?
Well, and then they try to tie it. We're not going to talk too much about this, but they try to tie her to the dark side you fight at the beginning of the game.
The very beginning.
Because it's made of a watery substance similar to how she looks when she dies. I don't know if I buy that. And then they talk about the Cheerthy ears with Kairi that are on her hood. I don't really know why they talk about that. But what's interesting about that is in the Pirates of the Caribbean trailer, they removed the ears.
Like rendered them out. And
they
then
rendered them out
in.
for the trailer, but then put them back in for the game. And on some art they did in 2016, she has the ears on her hood there, but they, for whatever reason, edited them out in Pirates, which is so in the Pirates trailer, which is so strange.
Right. And normally, like, Cheerthies are very similar to, like, Dream Eaters.
So I don't think they don't really come to a huge conclusion on Kairi, but other than she's not normal Kairi. There's something off with Kairi.
They're not saying that it's not her, but there's something wrong at the very least.
Right. This is the section that actually started blowing my mind a little bit. And their little intro I'm going to read for you guys. The signs were there all along. So now that we have a how and a why we'd be in the realm of sleep, let's look at the whats. Through the game, there are many little unexplained oddities. Things that could be written off, brushed aside as a video game thing. Things maybe you don't notice the first time around, but are entirely too consistent in nature to ignore once you spot it. This is just a collection of things we found parsing through under the pretense of, oh my god, they're in the realm of sleep. Big or small, key or coincidence, it's on the list. DDD mechanics. Not King DDD. Dream Drop Distance. DDD. Games tend to add new mechanics and improve on what's old. It's easy to write these things off as simple video game stuff, which is fair, but Kingdom Hearts often utilizes its game mechanics as a narrative tool. For example, in Dream Drop Distance, one of the biggest hints that Riku was a Dream Eater the whole time was hidden in plain sight with an unassuming game mechanic. When you'd link with Dream Eaters as Sora, he would always do something with them, whereas Riku would merge with them since he himself was a Dream Eater. It's a simple thing that, without knowing the context, isn't something to begin much thought. But that doesn't mean it shouldn't be taken into account. So moving forward, the first point they make is dream portals. Dream portals, once you come back from the final world, they suddenly show up everywhere.
Yeah.
The battle gates and all that. And even when you go into Master Xehanort's heart,
yeah,
you go into a dream portal. And I did, when we were playing the game and that first one shows up, when you come back from Final World, there's one, but then the first battle gate shows up that they kind of use to explain the existence of battle gates.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, why are these everywhere all of a sudden? These were in Dream Drop Distance, and you were in a dream. But I didn't think, oh, the whole game's in a dream. But that's just one.
That's just one small thing.
Right. All the portals in the Final World and Scaled Kaim, both of which we know are connected to dreams, are bright pink, reminiscent of special portals in DDD, and pointedly different from the battle gates, which are blue. So even though I was talking about the battle gates, they're the pink ones in particular we use, and those are special portals.
Pink ones.
I don't know. They really like to call Meow Wow Bumpus, and I'm not into that.
Yeah, I don't follow. I don't subscribe to that.
Right. What they're saying with this is that all the links are part of the Dream 2. That one I'm not super into, but whatever. That's fine. Breathing underwater. They mentioned in Kingdom Hearts 1 that they'll drown in Atlantica, but then Donald's like, my magic, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in Daybreak Town, not Daybreak Town, in Scala Kaim, where you can see Daybreak Town and you fight Xehanort,
You're underwater
for a long period of time. It doesn't matter.
And in Pirates of the Caribbean.
And the only other time Sora's been able to breathe underwater without being transformed is in DDD's Monstro Dream World, because he can breathe underwater with no issue.
Right. So normally, in order for him to breathe, it has to be part of Donald's magic. Otherwise, he would drown.
Right.
That's the idea.
Flow motion as well, they talk about, because flow motion came from DDD, and it makes sense that would be things you could only do in the dream world. I do have, this is one part of the theory that I'm kind of like, I don't know, guys, because while Sora can't do flow motion in Kingdom Hearts 2, he can do some wacky stuff in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. And I just don't, you know what I mean?
Well, I think the point is that, like, yeah, there's like, yeah, I don't know. I agree with it. They're trying to say that not to the, like, you should be able to do flow motion in real life or whatever, but not to that degree. But I don't follow that either, because, like, Roxas and Riku are running up and down buildings, and Xemnas is running up and down buildings. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah. I don't. It's gotta.
Right. That's why. That's what I was saying. Like, they do stuff in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 that.
You could, if like they're saying, like, okay, that's a mechanic from DDD,
right?
So that's just another point that might add to that. Maybe in the next game they're like, there's no flow motion because you're not in a dream world. I don't see them doing it, but if they do, if that ends up happening, then we know why.
Right. Moving on, they talk about the reality shift that they do, where they summon the Gay Blade. Do they do this one free in Aqua? I haven't heard time remembering.
Yeah, they do it.
They take down Aqua
fight.
and they do it.
Like the cutscene after it.
Right.
Go again.
It says they pull up an Ultimania thing that says that this Keyblade is the same Keyblade that's in DDD. Like, it says that in the Ultimania.
Yeah.
The part that I like about this theory, the part that really made me go, whoa, is this next part, Link Block. So they show this GIF of Sora when okay, if you guys don't know about DDD, in Dream Drop Distance, when you were Sora, you had these Dream Eaters that, well, I guess Riku had them too, but when you were Sora, you had these Dream Eaters that would help you. You had 2 of them, right?
Yeah, kind of like your Donald and Goofy, but you could choose
right,
which one
and
you
it was
want.
kind of had a Pokemon mechanic to it almost. You didn't have to catch them, but it was like training them up and all that. And you could get different abilities to go with them, and there's an ability in DDD called Link Block, and basically it allows Sora to warp in front of his Dream Eater just before they're hit, blocking the attack, which is literally what he does to protect Riku from Aqua. And that's insane. That blew my mind.
Yeah,
because Riku is technically his Dream Eater. He's using his abilities from the Dream World still, the Dream Realm.
Yeah, so they even say, like, down to the last frame, there's nothing there.
And then they also make the point in Dream Drop Distance, Riku says, I know I'm back in the real world, but I still have my Dream Eater powers, which means he still hasn't woken up. So Riku even says, you can't use those powers unless you are in sleep.
Yeah, yep.
That lends...
Credence.
Thank you. I couldn't think of the word. Lends credence to the theory that they are in the sleeping realm. Their next point is about Aqua. And I'm going to just read this paragraph for us here. Hey, speaking of the impossible, saving Aqua as they set it up shouldn't have ever happened. It's established early on in the game that Aqua was at the dark margin, the same shore both Sora and Riku found themselves at the end of KH2. This is confirmed again when she's later found there by Riku and Mickey on their return to visit the Realm of Darkness. But up until this point, their entire mission revolved around the need to find someone who was close enough to Aqua to dive down deep enough to save her, like Riku had done for Sora. They have almost no options and resort to following her steps, trying to find anybody she may have been friends with, but we never see this come to fruition. Sora, with Ven's heart, is really the only one able to, but even he doesn't manage to get the chance. Riku and Mickey discover her inexplicably in the Dark Margin before Sora's intervention to save them. Aqua's descent into the abyss is even the same as Sora's in DDD. Darkness spreads across their bodies until they are covered entirely, being dragged down in the abyss. Unlike Sora, who had Ven's armor protect him directly from the darkness, Aqua was defenseless. Their bodies are also similarly covered completely with a shadowy, inky black until it gives way to a more recognizable form. She's deep down there, we know this for a fact, but we don't know how on earth they got to her. We may not currently have a hard answer, but we do have an idea.
Basically, they're saying that, like, it would be super dangerous to do, because in DDD, when, like, Riku is woken up, but Sora hasn't, Riku has to dive back down to wake up Sora. He's basically saying that, like, hey, like, bad things could happen if you dive this deep.
Right. And the point they make, I'm not going to read every word of it, but basically they're saying that because they're already one layer down in sleep, they'd be closer to where she was. Right? Kind of an Inception kind of thing.
So that because they ended up diving and that's in the dream realm or sleeping realm,
right,
then they'd be closer
to darkness.
Yes.
Yes. This also begs the question of how differently things could have gone the first timeline. If they never had a means or connection strong enough to save Aqua, they potentially wouldn't have had all the Guardians of Light. Their organization might have had to enact their plans of utilizing the new 7 Princesses of Heart. This, too, is another plotline brought up and dropped. Dropped, yes, because with Aqua and thus Ventus, they gathered all the Guardians of Light, rendering the princesses unnecessary. The game even specifically mentions Kairi is still a Princess of Heart, despite the rest giving up their lights and is never brought up again. But the fact remains that the chess game suggests 7 lights had to come save Sora, when we never really found or even met all of them. However, one thing remains constant. Princess or Guardian, Kairi would always remain a vital piece for Xehanort's plan and would always be in danger.
So basically saying that perhaps in the first timeline, they actually had to go with like the Kingdom Hearts 1 telling of story, right? But they wanted to switch it up in Kingdom Hearts 3, right? Perhaps in the previous timeline, it was similar to what happened in Kingdom Hearts 1.
Right.
And that might be part of why when Kairi dies, she doesn't have her heart, because maybe she had to use it to save Sora for this timeline to exist type thing. So who knows?
Interesting. I never thought of that. Up next, we talk about Toy Box. And because Toy Box has a very strange connection to Dream Drop Distance, the fact that the world has been split in two, just like Traverse Town and Dream Drop Distance, it's almost like a retelling of Dream Drop Distance.
Yeah.
Which is strange.
Like talking about how some of the... Because like in Dream Drop Distance, if you haven't played, there's the World Ends With You characters. Half of them are stuck with Sora in his version of Traverse Town, and the other are with Riku in his version. Essentially, they're both trying to get back to each other. And they're kind of saying how we're seeing this one side. It's very similar and echoes the same type of thing as DDD. And then another point they have is that young Xehanort is there. And young Xehanort is in DDD, and he's the main antagonist. He can move through those sleeping realms, and he can move through time. And Sora, again, isn't able to hit him. He just phases through him. So just another like big point is to how like, hey, this it's not exactly what it seems.
Right. And then they talk about how Sora can't land a blow on young Xehanort. And so when he realizes he can't, he goes to try to help his friends, but young Xehanort grabs him, and then before he gets blasted into Virum Rex, he says a very pointed and unprompted, "Not this time." Almost as if this has happened before. Dun, dun, dun.
So that's why this happened, because Xehanort, young Xehanort, knows because he travels through time.
Right.
He knows that, oh, Sora's going to do this, so I can stop him.
Right.
Whereas maybe Sora was able to stop. Like, maybe that would have been, like, the ending in the first time of that world or whatever.
So they say it's strange how DDD is a prelude game to Kingdom Hearts 3, and yet it seems like they admitted the most vital world building aspect of the game introduced, Dream Worlds. They are vital given that the entirety of Kingdom Hearts Union Cross is also a dream retelling of events in order to save the Dandelions from the aftermath of the Keyblade War. It's weird that Dream Worlds would play such huge roles in 2 games leading up to Kingdom Hearts 3, only for them to seemingly not be part of the plot or even mentioned. It's so careful how sparingly the game says the word dream at all, considering this entire world and its blatant reuse of concepts, almost like it might be on purpose. So that's kind of their point, is that it seems very suspicious that all this kind of stuff was dropped.
Well, and like, in Dream Drop Distance, it kind of seems like there's parts where Sora seems like he kind of forgets that it's a dream. He talks to people that he's like seen or whatever, and then they don't know him or whatever. Like he keeps forgetting that it's a dream, and that would make sense if this was a dream, because Sora wouldn't remember it's a dream. And with all these mechanics being very similar, like in-game mechanics and actual like lore story, he wouldn't be like, oh, like when this happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he lost his powers, he didn't lose his memory, you know?
Right.
So that would just be another point as to why they're in a sleeping realm. They're in a dream world or dream line.
Their next topic is deja vu. Topic of deja vu. Within Kingdom Hearts is a general rule of thumb that even though the mind may not remember, the heart never forgets. This was established pretty early as a concept with Chain of Memories. Imagine with a name like that. This specific example is even further proven by being one of the memories Sora can choose during his Dive of the Heart. And the memory they're talking about is Sora making a promise to Naminé before having his memories re-put together. And their point is, at the beginning of this game, one of his memories you can choose from is him pinky promising Naminé, even though he should not remember that.
Right. He shouldn't.
He should not. He doesn't even know who Naminé is.
Right. Well, he does.
He does, but he doesn't.
He doesn't have that emotional connection.
Right. Well, he has the emotional connection. He just doesn't remember it.
Oh, yeah.
Their hearts are connected. He just doesn't remember.
He doesn't get why he has that emotional connection.
This is also kind of the idea behind some of the effects of time travel. If traveling through and into the future, your experiences, memories don't come back with you once you return in the past. You continue to live your life, but with an underlying subliminal need or sense to follow whatever brings you to the future you've experienced, as it has been etched into your heart. It's a continuity failsafe.
And so basically after that, they show like clips of the cutscene. Young Xehanort's like, well, I'm going to go back to my time and live my life, and this will all still come to fruition because now I know what my true destiny is. Right. It's going to be... it's like the follow your heart phrase,
right?
As if you time traveled and changed it. So who knows? Right. Time travel could be real. And that's why you're listening to this podcast, because we went into the future and we told you. So now it's etched into your heart.
Basically, they say there's a lot of instances where this happens. The first example they give is Goofy saying, "May your heart be your guiding key." Something they haven't heard yet, but Goofy insists he's heard it. And Goofy says, "May your heart be your guiding key." And they're like, "Huh, what's that?" And he's like, "Master Yen Sid always said that right before he went off on a real important adventures." And they're like, "Really?" And he's like, "Oh, maybe I imagined it."
And it just kind of seems like something you're like, that was weird. And then you just kind of move on. But that would be another point.
Or Sora feeling like it's been a long time since he's been to Twilight Town. And he says, "It's been ages," to Hayner Pensacola, and Hayner's like, "What? It hasn't been that long."
They're still on summer vacation.
In Jiminy's journal, it says Hayner Pensacola are still on their summer vacation, so it hasn't really been that long at all. And then they're chalking up the Rex, thinking Sora looks like Yozora to him being there before.
That's why he's like, "Oh, you're so familiar. Oh, you must be this." But in reality, it's because he's met him before.
Right. And then there's also them not knowing what the unversed is, and Goofy's like, I feel like I've seen the unversed before. It's on the tip of my tongue. Maybe the king said something about negative emotions. And then Donald just goes, unversed? And it's like, what? How does he know? And they went through BBS and confirmed Donald and Goofy never leave Yensid's tower. They never see the unversed for themselves. Goofy goes from feeling like he's seen them before to confirming only Mickey ever fought and told them about them. And you could say it's a continued issue, but BBS and DDD were planned at the same time to lead into KH3. And the series has stayed remarkably consistent with itself, especially post-2010. And all of that doesn't explain why Goofy would contradict himself in his very next sentence.
And I feel like this game has been in like production for so long that I'm sure it's changed multiple times, right? And he said there's multiple storylines that he wrote out. So I doubt with like the countless times of reviewing it that would just slip through the cracks immediately. I don't think so.
Here's another interesting one. Anna and what's this doof's name again? Kristoff saying, oh, Sora feels like someone you can trust. And Kristoff's like, I'm right there with you. And then a really weird scene that I forgot about is in Frozen when Anna gets shot by Elsa. She caps her with her ice gun. Sora feels it in his heart.
Like he's Yoda or something.
Right.
It's like,
great disturbance has happened to me. You know, and it's like, no, what? And so they talk about this a little bit. Sora's fear and pain here is probably one of the more interesting and unexplained oddities. It's hard to believe that it's just his connection with Anna, seen as we've never seen anything like this with any other character before. He feels the pain at the same moment she was struck, a shot of ice to the heart. The mind may forget, but the heart remembers, suggesting that maybe Sora took the blow in the past. Even within the movie, it said, the heart is not so easily changed, but the head can be persuaded. Sora at one point in the pirate says, the sea belongs to everyone. And Donald says, I said that. Don't copy my expressions. And they're like, wait, you did say that? Did Donald say that?
He didn't say that.
Right. So it's like, what? I got to tell Riku what a blast this place is. Oh, we just got here. We haven't done anything yet. Hey, Mickey, don't use the time magic against these numbers. You won't have strength for the final battle. All these are like weird things that people kind of knew. You've visited the...
and then Chiarthy saying, hey, you visited this place more than once. Don't you have the power of waking? Like, you've been here so many times.
Right. And then this is one of the things that also kind of got me shaking a little bit. But the promotional material, early trailers,
like the old,
led with this quote: "Don't assume your dreams are just fantasy. If you can imagine a world, believe in it and dive in." And they use it multiple times. And then it just disappeared after the Toy Story trailer. Later, official sources started to use a simple but unrelated specific hashtag, translated to "only dream" or "there's only a dream." The first time it was used is 6 days to the countdown of the game coming out in Japan. Then it was used moving forward in all promotional tweets, including release day. The last time they used this was the secret movie announcement tweet. So that's pretty interesting, right?
Right.
That they...
Well, and then they don't reference dreams at all in the game, really.
Right, yeah. And I know, like, part of it, like, I think people chalk it up to, like, Disney uses the word dream a lot. Like, a dream is a wish your heart makes. That's, like, a classic Disney thing. But that just seems very strange. And then we're going to talk about Lumpy, who is the most adorable character in the history of Kingdom Hearts, but also is a Heffalump. And Heffalumps in the Winnie the Pooh lore have only shown up in Winnie's dream.
Nightmares.
Winnie the Pooh's dream.
And he's scared of a Heffalump.
But yeah, it's weird that they just randomly showed up. You know, that there was Heffalumps and no Eeyore. I read that Eeyore's voice actor died too, just like Phil's.
Oh.
And that's why they didn't include Eeyore, but you don't need to replace Eeyore. You have enough Pooh characters for your 15-minute section of gameplay. But it would make sense if the Heffalumps were there because everybody was dreaming.
Yeah.
Because we're in the dreaming world. Sleeping keyholes, dude.
Sleeping keyholes are a big one.
Sleeping keyholes are a huge part of
A
this.
biggie.
Sleeping keyholes are introduced in DDD, used both as a means of entering the sleeping realm as well as awaken a sleeping world from its slumber, starkly different from world keyholes. Every sleeping keyhole uses the same grand motifs and overall look. When unlocked, a large circular section of the background behind it disappears with an effect reminiscent of shattering glass, revealing intricate designs and symbols underneath. They are so unique, and towards the end, KH3 is riddled with them. The keyholes in DDD, the former from when they first fight Ursula and first enter the fake dream worlds, the second in Traverse Town, and the third near the end when Riku unlocks Sora's heart. And then they are used again, as they say in Kingdom Hearts 3, when Sora opens the final world to save his friends. The rest of the cast enter Scala ad Kaim, and then Sora when he goes off to save Kairi at the end of the game. And I thought that was just like the power of waking that he was using.
Right.
But I didn't.
Previously, it was...
I forgot that those
Yeah.
were in Dream Drop Distance. So multiple cutscenes with young Xehanort stand out. The most cryptic organization member by far, and notably the one who, time travels. He talks almost like he knows this is already a Sleeping Realm copy of the world, and asks Sora specifically, Sora if Sora specifically can handle the strain of what's already notably a world split in two. And in Toy Story, he says, the way hearts connect in this world can provide us with a clue. So we made a copy of the world and then pulled those hearts apart. I wonder how you'll handle the strain. And during the dive to save everyone in the Keyblade Graveyard, young Xehanort seems to be referencing the events of DDD, except he talks as though Sora should know this specifically. The danger of using the Power Awakening to save hearts down in the darkest abyss is what Riku was warned about right before he dove into Sora's heart. But there's no reason for Sora to know unless Sora's already paid the price, like he said. All that gallivanting through the sleeping worlds, and yet you've learned nothing? Dream by dream, you nearly buried yourself in the dark of sleep. And now you're at it again? The Lich you've been fighting, it's not like other Heartless. It exists to usher hearts down to the depths of darkness. If you chase it, you will condemn your heart to that same abyss. What do you think the power of waking is? It's not for traversing hearts to reach worlds. It's for traversing worlds to reach hearts.
You said that backwards.
Did I?
Yeah.
No, it's not for traversing hearts to reach worlds.
It's for traversing.
It's for traversing hearts to reach worlds, not for traversing worlds to reach hearts. There's a high price to pay for wielding such power foolishly. No, there's no saving you. You've paid the price, and it lies at the bottom of the abyss. And even his last words point to the consequence of something Sora's already set in motion. But Sora, you're done now. Your journey ends here. Your time in this world is... In Nomura's interview, he goes on into what young Xehanort's words meant. It doesn't change anything other than clarify exactly what he said, reinforcing that Sora has definitely set something in motion when extraneously using the power the wrong way. So the question that was asked was, when young Xehanort is fading away, he says, goodbye, Sora. Your time in this world is... What did he mean? And Nomura said, your time in this world is over. It's hinted at in the ending. Before that scene, he warned Sora, there's a high price to pay for wielding such power foolishly. The power of awakening is not the power to bring people back to life, but Sora was using it to do that just that to his friends. As a result, time was rewound, and young Xehanort predicted that Sora would literally pay the price by disappearing. Pretty interesting. And we knew young Xehanort was up to something, and we didn't know what. And now
then we were like, well, nothing really came to fruition, except for Sora disappearing.
Right.
But really, the whole time, it was already happening. It already happened.
They go on to talk about reinforced theming in the worlds, and I suggest you guys check that out because it is pretty interesting stuff. But for our purposes today, I don't think we need to go over it.
It's just basically
They
like
talk about like
similar
true
things
love
happen.
and, yes, and I don't know that necessarily lends credence to this theory. It's just they pick the worlds really well to be all themed together. They do talk about how Elsa and Anna are similar to Sora and Riku.
Yeah.
Or Riku and Sora in that order.
In each world, they respectively parallel what the characters in that world are going through to something either Sora has been through or is going to go through, whether it's separation and then just the act of true love saving and reviving, which is like something that happens in Disney and in Kingdom Hearts.
Right.
Power of separation, stuff like that.
So moving on, the next chapter we're going to go through is called Riku is the Light.
He is the light.
Search for the light in the darkness, said the Chirithy. Now, if you want the biggest example of where the game wants you to believe one thing and yet everything else surrounding it is suspect, an example of purposeful misdirection, this is it. Established throughout the entire game, the theme of true love, what it means to sacrifice yourself for somebody you love, and the power of revival through it have been hammered home. With the importance Chirithy places on finding the light in the darkness, Riku with his light in the dive to the heart, and the second chances given from an act of true love, this is what we believe is the key for the timeline diversions. This isn't new. It's hard to believe Riku himself could be a light like this due to his tango with the darkness. Let it be known that this has been foreshadowed for quite a while. While Sora has been a powerful guiding light for Riku, that doesn't mean Riku hasn't been one in his own right. In fact, it's shown repeatedly that he has a very, very powerful light within him. The first time we see Riku in the series, in the KH1 opening, it begins with Sora shielding his eyes from the sun before it cuts to Riku's back. And the next shot after that, symbolic of his fall to darkness, that same bright and blinding sun gets blocked out by a large wave. The very first scenes of the series establish water as a representative of darkness, and establish that Riku's light is powerful enough to be represented by the sun itself. So powerful that in KH1, it's a flare of Riku's own light, tangible in the moment that gave Sora the Keyblade. This is from the Kingdom Hearts 1 Ultimania. And Nomura says, there is a scene in Destiny Islands where Riku is being swallowed by darkness. A light appears, and Sora first obtains the Keyblade. With the setting I created, the darkness that surrounds them is Riku's heart's darkness. At that moment, Sora enters the darkness, and the light he sees inside is Riku's heart's light. Sora, who was squirming in the darkness to save Riku, touched the light and temporarily obtained the Keyblade from Riku.
Basically saying his light was so powerful that it saves Sora from the darkness, and he gets the the flare of his light also gives him the Keyblade.
Yes.
Temporarily from Riku.
Riku and his powerful light have been reinforced as an important point since Birth by Sleep. It is his light explicitly that both Terra and Aqua see here. So they show them traveling in space. First Terra on his own, and he says, this light, it's so warm. And then Aqua says, what's that light? Both are shocked by it, both comment on it, and ultimately it leads both of them to Destiny Islands. In Aqua's scenes, her eyes in the frame keep gravitating towards Riku. But the moment Terra gets a good look at Riku, he recognizes the light in him and states it plainly. And now the light has led me here. Light. And he looks right at Riku when he says light. Was I guided here in order to meet that boy? And this is further reinforced in DDD. Again, keep in mind, both DDD and BBS were in development at the same time. The setup in BBS was meant to foreshadow what happens with his light in DDD, and both games are meant to lead into KH3. When Sora first starts venturing deeper and deeper into sleep, chasing his own dreams until he ends up a dream version of Traverse Town, where he hears Riku's voice trying to wake him up, trying to pull him out of the darkness. Reaching for the door, he stops hearing Riku's voice. He falls back asleep, and we see his model change to Kingdom Hearts 2 Sora, brought up from that deeper layer of sleep by Riku's voice calling to him. We then see Sora chasing images and dreams of people connected to him, people he's meant to save, shown to him in quick succession. Every other character that Sora sees pulls him down further into darkness, pushing him further into the abyss. This is illustrated clearly when he sees Roxas. It's talking with Roxas that forces Sora from his KH2 model back to his younger one. His pain is what pushes him back under a layer of sleep.
Yeah, it's when he touches his hands, and then Sora just starts crying because he feels all the pain, and then basically saying that that pain causes him to go deeper down.
The whole sequence is a back and forth of scenes like this cut through by Riku's words until finally he's chasing the last visions of Riku and Kairi. Sora hears Riku's voice again and the visions disappear, replaced by a bright and blinding light. A light that takes him to when they were kids, when they met Aqua, and when Riku's light was so bright it managed to call two Keyblade wielders from across the universe. Until we suddenly get interjected Ansem's SOD. I almost said sucker of dicks. The literal embodiment of Riku's fall, a physical reminder of the time Riku's darkness was great enough to eclipse his light. Sora is then yanked from this happy memory and very literally dropped, plummeted in front of Zigbar, who tells him it wasn't easy inducing a second sleep. It wasn't easy putting you into a second sleep. Riku's words alone were strong enough to reach Sora down within several layers of sleep. Later, Riku successful in waking Sora up from the deepest depths of slumber, diving into his heart down at the bottom of the abyss. Turns out this is no small task. And they show a clip from Union Cross where Chirithy is explaining, the princess was in deep slumber, only to be awoken by true love. It's a strong and wonderful power, like the heart's light. Basically, what they're saying is that Riku loves Sora so much that his light can save Sora from most anything.
True love.
True love. And, you know, there's a lot of people out there saying Sora and Riku are gay. It doesn't matter to me if they're gay or not.
There's some signs.
There's
I
definitely...
can see it both ways.
Right. You know, and I would support that 100% if they were like, yeah, these characters are gay. Cool. They haven't said that, though. So what I don't like is people who think they're gay, and then someone goes, well, I think they're just friends. And they go, oh, you're just scared of gay people. And it's like, no, no, that's what I personally think, is that they're friends.
Yeah.
Like, you and I are friends, and I would hope that my heart's light could save you one day.
Right.
But that doesn't mean I want to suck your dick.
No.
Especially because we're brothers.
Yeah. That adds another layer of sleep
well,
onto it.
I don't know. I don't know, because it can only be gay or incest. It can't be both.
Can't be both.
Can't be both. Anyway.
The point is...
The point is they could be gay, and if they are, cool. If they're not, cool. But I personally think they're just friends. But I don't... If Nomura comes out tomorrow and goes, hey, Sora and Riku are, in fact, 15-year-old boys who are gay lovers, which is a weird thing to think about, then I would say, cool. A little weird, but cool. You know, whatever. They can be gay. It doesn't matter. But stop, you know, everybody has an opinion on it. Stop trying to shame the people that think they're not gay. Because they just have their opinion. And they're like, oh.
And then there's some people who are like, there's no way they're gay. They could be.
Right, yeah. You guys need to shut up, too, because...
Everyone shut up.
Right, everybody just shut up except us. Anyway, I want comments.
Regardless?
I want comments. If you think Sora and Riku are gay, I want you down in the comments. And if you think they're not gay, I want you down in the comments. Let's get a discussion going. Gay or not?
Also,
does Sora Riku is gay?
Yeah, does Riku Sora is gay? Also, I feel like it might just be more of like the American thing, because a lot of times they just switch. They kind of switch it a little bit in the translation. Mm-hmm. But like they so clearly kind of set up like a Sora Kairi thing. And
some of that is translation,
right? Yeah, some of it is. But yeah, and even from like when I was younger, I was like, okay, yeah, I feel like they totally have a thing, right? And then it's like, it's definitely a thing that has happened before in stories where it's like, and I'm sure it's happened in real life too. There's two people who like a certain person, but then one of them realizes, oh, I don't like this person. I like the other person who likes that person. And that it could be that.
Right.
But it could also just be like, who knows? Well, Kingdom Hearts is like put into all of us like, go, it's another layer deeper. No, right. It's another layer deeper.
Well, and part of
in reality,
they're
just all friends. That no one is in love with anyone. They love each other.
Children,
but they're all friends.
Right. Well, and the thing is, too, people are like getting mad that like
they're like, I want a sex scene.
No, dear God, no. But people are like getting mad.
I'm not legally allowed to play this game.
Yeah, you're gonna get banned.
FBI, open up!
No, stop, dude. What's wrong with you? They're gonna come here now. No, people are getting angry about the whole Riku Namine connection. And Nomura himself even said that Riku and Namine's hearts are very connected because of the Riku replica. And so, like, and they really, that scene, there's no words in that scene when he goes to pick Namine up.
Yeah.
But there's fucking, like, rose petals falling from the sky, and he's, like, holding his hand
It reminds me of FF8.
Yes. Yeah, it's very much FF8. And it's like that scene is played up to be romantic, you guys.
Yeah.
I know that bums a lot of people out, but that scene when he's picking her up in the ship and there's just, they're not rose petals. They're that, whatever that Japanese tree is called. You know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about.
Like where Guan Yu and the other brothers made the promise.
It's like cherry blossom or something like that.
It's some kind of blossom. And those leaves are just everywhere. And he's like holding his hand out like, and he's looking at his face like, hey, get on the ship with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that scene's very romanticized and it was done on purpose. You know, you don't make something look like that very stylistically like romantic unless you want it to be.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've gone off on another tangent. Does Sora is gay? Let us know in the comments. Strength to protect. Now that we've established Riku's light as exceedingly powerful, let's get into its main driving force. The narrative they've been building around Riku since 2010 and arguably earlier, and his primary motivation throughout most games, all games after KH1 in the series. What convinced Terra that Riku was worthy of the Keyblade in the first place? Strength to protect things that matter. Arguably earlier, as the association of Riku as protector was emphasized even in 2008 with Coded, released at the same time as 358/2 and BBS were in development.
Basically saying that, like, Riku is his protector, and that is symbolized in the fact that in, like, Recoded, or just Coded before it was redone, that he... The thing that took physical form was Riku.
Right.
Or, like, it took a physical form as Riku. Sorry.
So half the Disney worlds are about sacrificing in the name of love, protecting the person most important to you at the cost of your life, and how that led to eventual resurrection, and how Hercules and his worlds are directly parallel to Riku that they emphasize at the very start of the game. The only character that has been consistently applied to is Riku. All of it was to foreshadow what Riku does in Keyblade Graveyard, a last act of true love and protection. Sora loses all of his friends, his strength, and his will to go on, until the only one left beside him is Riku, who outright tells Sora he's worthless now without his friends standing by him. Who Sora outright tells him. I was like, wait, Riku didn't tell him that. I read that
Who
wrong.
Sora outright tells.
Yeah. Without them, all my strength came from them. Alone, I'm worthless. Sora, you don't believe that. I know you don't. And here, the running importance of the strength to protect comes to a climax, with Riku protecting Sora for seemingly one last time, one last act of self-sacrifice. Off the back of their conversation, it looks like he's showing Sora, the people you love don't need to be beside or with you for you to be strong, that the strength from wanting to protect and save exists in him all on his own. Sora, throughout his journeys, grew more and more dependent on the people around him. He grew more and more desperate not to lose them, where Riku's been acting mostly alone since the end of KH1. The only thing driving him through most games was protecting Sora. But ultimately, they've been drawing their strength from the same place. He's showing it to Sora now. He's trying to inspire Sora with the strength to hold on. Ultimately, the power of true love brings Sora back, or at least enables him to persist death, and in turn, he brings back everyone else. The final world. And so they die, and Sora is brought to the final world. Here, Chirthi says one of the most important lines in the game.
What in the hell is that noise?
It's the most important line in the game. Just kidding. The line is really the edges of sleep and death touch. One can't help the occasional crossover. Something is holding you here, refusing to let you go. You're hanging by a thread. The game presents Kairi as the seemingly sole answer, but it rewards you for looking at the stars, all with very deliberate flavor text. The stars that are unconnected to any character we know, but all illustrate the type of feelings that would allow a soul to persist in the final world. Unresolved love, romantic love, familial love, the love between siblings or close friends, or even adversaries who enjoyed fighting together. Love of all kinds, strong bonds you don't want to let go of, feelings you don't want to give up. Chirthi itself doesn't mention specifically what's allowing Sora to persist, but the only two voice cutscenes both purposely mention Kairi and Riku. When Namine's star cutscene, we understand that it's Kairi that keeps Sora's form together. She's fighting with all her strength to keep you from fading away. So the reason I retained my form in this place. When Nameless starts cutscene, we understand it's Riku's words that allowed Sora's heart
to persist.
The hope to persist, to arrive in the final world in the first place.
He's saying, oh, so you mean no, in my heart he will return? Without any proof?
Exactly, believe.
Basically saying, oh, so you're saying I should basically fully believe in my heart that he will return or whatever.
But a friend of mine looked me in the eye and said, you don't believe that. When we look at the other stars present in this section, it becomes obvious what's keeping them persistent in the final world is the need to hold on, to not give up either their regrets or their happy feelings or unfinished business. And that's what Riku's impact on him was. To put shortly together, Kairi saves Sora's body, Riku saves Sora's hearts. Here lies the biggest and most probably overt hint that Riku is more important in this whole sequence than surface level presented, which is almost completely obscured in the English translation. What Riku tells Sora in Keyblade Graveyard is repeated, obviously quoted, and directly attributed to what saves Sora, keeping him persisting and the light that pulls him to the darkness. So the translation is, Sora, I believe in you. You won't give up. And then Sora's conversation with the Nameless Star goes a bit differently too. Ah, you too, you're not giving up. Same Riku phrase. Not giving up. Ah, that's an option too. I hadn't even thought about it. I think it's better that way. There's someone I know who taught me there's no option to give up. Same Riku phrase. This context of this conversation makes what keeps the heart persisting clearer than the English version. Sora recognizes not giving up as something Nameless Star is already doing, by virtue of your being present in the final world at all. And the biggest change...
So it's like saying he knows that
Right.
Riku saved him.
Right.
Or like gave him the strength to...
not give up.
Yeah.
And the biggest change, the bottom lines in the journal entry of this entire section were omitted from the localization entirely. And the English paragraph it was replaced with is nowhere to be seen in the Japanese version of the journal. Returning to the Keyblade Graveyard, Sora met up with Kairi. Kairi had been waiting in the darkness of the Devil's Wave, Japanese name for what we call Demon Tide. With the power of pure light of the new Seven Hearts, Sora's heart was stopped from fading away. Taking Kairi's hand, he returned to the Keyblade Graveyard at the point before their defeat. The don't ever give up will of a heart of light overturned the overwhelming power of darkness. Worth noting here that while they both say something along the lines of not giving up, Kairi's phrase comes later and uses different tense and subject. Riku's words are the ones directly fitting what was left of the quotation in the journal. Kairi, I just didn't give up on you. Riku, I believe you won't give up. The journal really includes Japanese symbols and quotation marks in a way that almost makes it seem out of place. And just like all the other times it's come up since he said it, it uses Riku's exact wording. Like the conversation with Nameless Star, which happens before Kairi says her own version, Riku is the one being directly quoted, and you can definitely see how purposely this whole thing was worded, so that down the line be able to turn and go, this is why it's Riku. Long story short, never give up. They're asking the question, when it was time to go back, why, once he saved everybody's hearts by diving, why is Kairi the only one mentioned? Why is she the only one that's there when you're floating through space?
Right, because it's how you save their hearts, right?
Right, but you didn't save Kairi's. So Sora goes back in time. We see Riku's self-sacrifice scene, a last act of protection through Sora's point of view this time. Reminded of the message Riku's trying to tell him, of strength to protect, of not giving up, before Sora gets plunged into darkness with a single point of bright light. With no direct prompting on his final instinct, Sora calls for Riku, reaching for the light like he reached for him in the KH1 opening, like he reached for the light in the dive to the heart. Just like the dive to the heart, the parallel is intentional, and it does. They have a GIF here in the document that shows him reaching for the light in the same kind of way he reached for the light multiple times before. Notably in this scene, when Sora yells, Riku, answer me, the light itself begins making an odd ringing sound, responding to Sora's call. And we see him react to it with a look of surprise and awe, all while the light grows brighter before Sora calmly flies straight into it. The light leads Sora to Riku's heart first, Olympus. So basically, this is where we pick up where we're saving everybody's hearts from the liches, and he finds Riku's heart first in Olympus.
Yeah.
After calling to the light and following the light.
It makes sense.
They also parallel it to the fact that it's the world before Riku and Sora dive, kind of.
Oh, okay.
Based on their theory. So
yeah.
They parallel it to that.
That it's like Kingdom Hearts 2.8.
Right. It's the world where Herc says explicitly, I was able to save Meg's life because I was willing to risk my own. The light leads Sora here immediately after we get Sora experiencing Riku's self-sacrificial act for the second time. And to really hammer it home, he finds Riku floating atop a sacrificial tripod, most likely the Delphic tripod associated with Apollo, the god of sun and light. I don't know where they get that info from, but
that's crazy.
But if that's the case, that's pretty funny. I don't know what. I guess.
What do you sacrifice in it?
Well, not that, but like
your best friend.
The fact that it's like tied to Apollo. You know what I mean? Like how do you know? Is that what just specifically what that one looks like? I don't know where they got that from,
who knows?
But we'll take their word for it.
Yeah.
This is the world with the most direct, explicitly stated parallel of giving up what you're expected to love for what you truly love. How if you truly love something, you wouldn't leave it. Your life would be empty without it. Sora proceeds to save everyone's hearts, except pointedly Kairi, because her heart's already lost. Returning to the Keyblade Graveyard again, we do not find Kairi anywhere. We just kind of run into her on the way. Distinctly, deliberately, she is off to the side. The framing is off. Comparing two instances where Kylie was the light in the darkness, in Chain of Memories, there's a little ambiguity. She's central. There's little ambiguity. She's central, and it's emanating from her. it is very strange. She kind of almost the gift
It looks
they
like
show.
she covers it.
It looks like she's like, "Hey, the light's there, but I'm going to cover it."
Yeah. Like, pay attention to me, Sora.
Right. So they talk about in Kingdom Hearts 1, there's the sequence with Kyrie's grandma
Uh-huh.
and how Kyrie's grandma tells the story of how these children saved the world, right?
Yeah.
With their light. And they say, Kyrie has been presented as a light for Sora another time in the past. The example called back to the opening cinematic where Kyrie's light showed him the vision of her grandmother. The light tunnel showing Sora's visions isn't in itself strange. After all, that's what Kyrie did in KH1. You
Okay.
remember that?
Yeah.
And he's like, where am I? And they show the Kyrie and the grandmother. In fact, Kyrie even echoes what she said in KH1 that kicks off the light tunnel sequence. Her, I simply believed you wouldn't, a mirror to her, I believe in you from back then. But there's one key difference in this obvious callback. Kyrie is clearly the light in this scene because the light leads Sora to a vision of her. He sees her after following it through to the end of the tunnel. Clearly and explicitly, every time either Kyrie or Riku's light has been shown as a tunnel to follow, they've been there at the very end of it. And so you ask yourself this, how is Kyrie supposed to be following her own light back? And if this scene were truly meant to be taken at face value, why do we get these specific visions inexplicitly in the middle of it? So they show the different visions of love that are shown in the Disney worlds at Rapunzel's area and at Frozen's area, and that happens in that cutscene. It shows Flynn and Rapunzel hugging, and it shows Elsa and Anna hugging in very important moments. Sudden visions of self-sacrifice, both referred to as true love, accompanied by the reviving power it has. Except neither Kyrie or Sora has sacrificed themselves for each other at this point, within this context. Sora tries to shield her, an act that read as surprisingly desperate and hopeless for the first sign of danger she faced. Like his heart, remembered she was going to die in this battle no matter what. But Goofy blocked the attack and nothing came of it. And most importantly, for all the danger she's in, none of Kyrie's scenes read as self-sacrificial. They read as resigned. Like she knew she was going to die. This light that Sora assumes is Kyrie, but which she never confirms or denies, a light that led him to Riku's heart originally. This light begins showing him these scenes of self-sacrifice, and Sora makes a confused jerking motion.
Like a what?
Like he pulls back, not like a jerking motion when you're like, this guy, right? And you do like the jerk off motion. And in reaction, Kyrie is also confused, which is weird considering if she's the light, she should be the one showing him these visions in the first place. And when they follow the light back to KG for no reason, we can see we get this. I never noticed this actually. They go into light and there's a solid 5 seconds where all we see is white screen and then this shot. Sora outstretches his arm, his other arm.
His other arm. His
One
right
arm is holding Kyrie's hand, the other left arm is outstretching.
Like as if he's going to hold somebody else's
Right.
hand.
We see Sora's right arm outstretched, holding Kyrie's hand, but she's omitted from the frame entirely because the focus, what they want you to see, is Sora reaching for the light one last time. A light that shines at him from the very opposite side of Kyrie, and the still frame illustrates this very, very clearly. Yeah, it is brighter on the left side of him.
Yeah.
The light source is clearly on the left. It doesn't even touch his right arm, therefore Kyrie, until the light takes over the scene. Why did they animate the shot the way they did? In fact, if Kyrie were the light, if we were meant to take this whole scene at face value, for what reason did they include it at all? The light shines, Sora makes a bewildered sound as he reaches for it, and when they land in KG, you clearly see his head was turned away from Kyrie. His eyes are searching for something to the left. In Arendelle, we get these two scenes, one referencing Riku's tendency to withdraw if he thinks it's the best for Sora, protecting Sora, and another referencing finding light in the darkness. It's telling that this is all mentioned in the same world. Okay, so now, the next one, the next part of this theory that I really like is the Riku fist clench.
His fist clenches. He gets
Similar
real
to the
mad.
Arthur fist clench meme.
Yes.
It's Riku fist clench. And there's an Ultimania update to start here first. The Ultimania interview with one of the animation directors confirms two things. Firstly, that they put great consideration into the movement that highlights characters' personalities and natures. First question is, what do you think are KH-esque movements? And the answer from our animation director here is, movements that make the characters' natures prominent and a mix of serious mood and comical feeling to pull the people watching in. Even though movements from motion capture are real, and you can feel the presence of the motion capture actors, all the movements in the KH series are treated with the utmost care. So there's a lot of charm piled in that can't be pulled off from the acting of people. And secondly, that important fist clenching, TM, is actually important and something they do consciously. So we've got confirmation that consistent habits like this are on purpose. And then they include a bonus from the Ultimania because every Ultimania interview, they ended with, "Hey, tell us a secret about the game only you know." And this animation director, Munori Shinagawa. That sounds better than the first time I said it, right? The habit Master Xehanort has of making a fist and letting it go, you can see a little during the chess-like game the young Xehanort is playing too. I tried to make it a habit he's had since childhood.
When he's talking about Kingdom Hearts and then he makes the fist and then he lets it go.
He does that a lot, actually. Starting from DDD, they made sure to put a constant emphasis on Riku's clenched fists. Every time it happens, it's purposefully animated and framed to draw the audience attention to it, as either the biggest or only thing in the frame. They've made you focus on it repeatedly. Not only that, it most often has to do with, surprise, Sora, and the scene they're showing is from DDD, is when Yen Sid is describing the first heroes of the Keyblade
And protecting the
light. Then there's him talking to Quasimodo, and Quasimodo is talking about the real walls were built around his heart, and you helped me see that, Riku. And then Riku clenches his fists again. And then the next scene is also from DDD with young Xehanort talking to Riku. And he talks about protecting those you cherish again. And then Riku clenches his fist. They've established this as a clear visual cue, most often when strengthening his resolve, and KH3 is no different. Riku's revelation prompted by Mickey about what he's drawing strength from, the cherished person who he wants to protect. Fist clench. Strength to protect what matters. Fist clench. Or when he thinks about Aqua's experience parallel to his own. Fist clench. Culminating in the fist clench before his self-sacrifice, right after withdrawing his hand from Sora, resolved to do what he has to do. So when Sora's on his knees going, I don't have anybody, everybody's dead.
I'm screwed
without them. Riku kind of does like a reach for him and doesn't actually touch him, and then clenches his fist.
He goes,
Anger. But these aren't the only times he's done it in this game. They're just the most obvious. The ones the game wants you to pay attention to first. Now, with that part in mind, we're moving on to the ending, as they say it, because the fist clench thing is actually very important to the ending. By now, you should be well aware KH3 has been constantly trying to obscure, hide, and brush off the clues that something else is going on behind the scenes that we aren't privy to. Pretty much everyone thinks it's out of character for Riku to just have let Sora go alone in the ending, but there's a weird emphasis on him when he realizes what Sora's trying to do. In a blink and you'll miss it. It's a blink and you'll miss it moment. Riku clenches his fist not once but twice. He clenches his fist, purposefully animated, both times just out of focus, slightly obscured but not out of frame. Then comes to an understanding none of the other characters seem to reach. So the first one they're showing, he does it, and it's almost even like covered by Donald's head.
yeah.
Which, does he actually do it? Hold on.
Yeah, he does. You can see he brings his hand goes up.
Right, but it looks open when it gets to the other side of Donald's head.
I don't
See
think
that?
So.
No? Okay. And the other one is when Mickey's talking and he does it. And
I
that
think
one
he kind of does a double fist clench.
Yeah, he almost does.
Yeah, he
double
fist
double
clenches.
fist clenches. Oh my God. He convinces Mickey and the others to trust in Sora, believe in him, and watches as Sora opens another sleeping keyhole. There are a lot of places, planes, worlds that sleeping keyhole could lead to, considering we're already in the sleeping realm. It's purposely vague and we're not given all the answers. But it's clear Riku knows something that neither we nor the rest of the cast do. And he's Sora's Dream Eater after all. Should Sora go deeper into sleep, he's the only one with the means to follow. Speaking of weird framing, the entire ending sequence is weird. The perspective doesn't make sense for what the game wants you to think is happening at first glance. So they're showing, and we've talked about this quite a bit actually, how Donald's the first one to notice whatever everybody looks at.
At least with how they cut it, yeah.
Right. He's the first person to notice. And then it shows everybody looking off in the distance, but they're not looking at the tree like the ending would lead you to believe.
Yeah, they're all looking out at the water.
They're looking out at the water, and we still don't know why. But when I first watched it, I was like, oh, they're all looking at the tree where Sora and Kairi are sitting, but they're not. Not at all, because the tree is to the left of them.
Yeah.
And I think they say that here. We know from the layout of Destiny Islands, if these characters were by the shack, the point they'd be looking out at would be the middle of the ocean, not the tree. And every character is facing the same direction with a look of mild or neutral shock. Or, if you're Mickey Mouse, a smile is as close as he can get. Yeah, he's straight up smiling. And they're all just kind of like, what?
Yeah.
Main thing is everything's looking out of the seat, except pointedly the nobody kids. Yeah, Roxas is kind of looking to the right there, isn't he?
He kind of looks like he's looking at the tree.
Yeah. We see this with Roxas clearly. He turns to look at whatever else is in at first before he blinks, notices something off to the side. His line of sight is the last frame of this shot, doesn't match up with any other character in the same frame, and in fact crosses over Aqua's. This is clearly animated, clearly deliberate. Both illustrates that none of the other characters were looking at the tree, and this was done on purpose. And then we have the girls, interrupted in the middle of their date. They're also the only ones clearly looking at the tree. And while there's a hint of Shion doing it too in the very last frame of the scene, with Naminé, it's clear. She's shown as the only character with a clear reaction to what she's seeing, a smile. Ooh, I don't know. I don't know if that's a smile from Naminé. Her face definitely changes.
She looks like she's kind of smiling.
She looks like she could eventually smile.
Well, she goes from looking concerned to like kind of a smile.
It almost looks like
Not a big smile.
I don't know about a smile, but it looks like a face of resolve to me as opposed to a smile. Like she's like, yeah. That's how I feel. But anyway. Now there could be a lot of reasons for this. A lot of connections between them that would lead to them noticing the tree. They're the kids connected to Sora and Kairi. They're the only ones there with replica bodies. There's also the difference between them with Roxas looking out the ocean first, though. And that's what they're... And that what's there catches his attention first.
And that what's there catches his attention first.
I was like, am I wrong? I can't process this right now. But and that's there and what's there catches his attention first. So there's the added possibility that whatever it is his connection is, that whatever it is his connection to is weaker. And the two girls related to Kairi have the strongest connection to whatever they're seeing. We can't say for sure what the reason is right now, but that these three look at the tree and the others look at something else, something the audience never sees, is fact. But that's not the only thing off about the ending. It's not even the biggest. In DDD, Joshua discovers the existence of dream worlds by spotting the time discrepancy. Neku and Rhyme's timers had less time, meaning they were farther in the future, than their partners in Sora's dream version of Traverse Town. Dreams can only be of the past. It's why so much of DDD took place in past time periods. Josh was talking. Jason hates Joshua.
I hate Joshua.
Remember at the start of this, we told you KH3's been lying to you? Remember the sky in the very last scenes? If Riku was truly behind the tree in this shot, why is the sky behind him completely orange? Why isn't it blue or blue tinged at all, like in the Sora and Kairi shot? These two different points of sunset, two different times, two different worlds.
Oh, snap.
Translation notes. Now, finally, the last issue with the localization. The one with the biggest implications for what really happens in the ending. Sora never explicitly says we'll both be back in the original version. He says, don't worry, if it's me, no matter what happens, I'll come back. With all the Disney World parallels, all the running themes throughout the game, that half of the Disney Worlds were of accepting separation and it being okay because you're keeping that person in your heart. Sully and Boo of needing to send Boo back to the human world for protection and safety. Elizabeth and Will doomed to living in two different worlds. Hero in the original Baymax and Tadashi. I don't know why I said Tadashi. Literally dealing with moving on from grief and accepting death. That no matter which world line, Kairi was fated to die and would need to go somewhere else for her own well-being. Sora says this to Xehanort, uncharacteristically serious, like this is a lesson he's come to learn after his whole journey, something we don't get to see him experience. A real leader knows that destiny is beyond his control and accepts that. Remember the start of the game where we see a repetition of the end of Point 2? The scene that's a direct continuation of the very end of DDD, another game where Sora disappears into a sleeping keyhole alone at the end because of something he has to do. The scene that was repeated at the very start of KH3 looked like a bookend meant to remind us of Sora's dedication to saying goodbye to all his friends. I just have some stuff that I have to take care of. So when he goes and sees the Dream Eaters, and then they show the scene of him saying, I just like to say goodbye to all my friends. And in the world Sora and Kairi are on, we see sunlight flare before abruptly dimming to fade behind a cloud, framing Sora's fading disappearance right before we see it cut to black. Sora leaves, in the end, having said goodbye to Kairi. He leaves and returns to the sleeping realm. So what they're saying, guys, is that Kairi is in a different world line, and Sora went to visit to say goodbye and come back, just like he did to the Dream Eaters at the end of DDD. That's what they're saying. How do you feel about that, Jason?
That doesn't really make sense because it's like the idea is that in the previous world line, they all died. So that doesn't make much sense, right?
Right. It could be a different world line, though.
Yeah.
Is there a limit on how many world lines there
Oh,
are?
yeah, unless he just went to one where they weren't fated to die and they were. That's just shitty then.
Right.
It's fated to work out.
Right. Okay. So moving on to the secret ending now. If the secret ending confirms anything, it confirms Sora stayed within the sleeping realm and Riku with him as his Dream Eater. And hey, Riku still has his Dream Eater hairstyle. He sure does. Ultimania update. This has actually been confirmed by Nomura to take place after KH3, and that when Sora disappears in the ending, he arrives here. More or less exactly as we thought. So the question for Nomura is, I see. Then continuing on, I'd like to ask about the secret movie. Is the location connected to the ending? Nomura says, yes. After disappearing in the ending, Sora arrives in the world shown in the secret movie. It starts with them waking up on the ground, the telltale sign they've dropped into a dream used over and over in KH3 alone. But this one particularly mirrors their drop in the Traverse Town at the start of DDD.
Oh, yeah.
Pointed scene as Traverse Town is where we found the world ends with you kids, and Sora ended up where? Shibuya.
And this is where
So-
we don't really.
No, and they even correct themselves in the Ultimania here because Nomura says in the Ultimania it's not specifically the world ends with you, Shibuya.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what I was trying to tell people because they're like, oh, the 104 building. The 104 building. There's no way that's from the world ends with you. No, it's how they avoid copyright claim because it's the 109 building. that's you're telling me he wouldn't use that again? You know what I mean? If he really wanted to make Shibuya, you're telling me he wouldn't just use that same way they got around it before?
I like how every time we've talked about it, you're equally triggered,
'Cause
if
people-
not more,
people
every
are just
time.
people are just like, oh, it's definitely
This is
Shibuya
fact.
from The World Ends With You. It definitely is. It's a fact. So here's Nomura saying, well, here's the question. Is the place Sora is in the same world as the one in The World Ends With You? And Nomura says, it looks that way. However, rather than saying Sora has gone to the World Ends With You world, the meaning is it's not exactly Shibuya, but Shibuya. Note, this is hard to explain in English, but instead of being written in kanji, the name Shibuya is written in katakana here. This basically means it's not the same as Shibuya in The World Ends With You or in the real world. Also, although Sora promised Neku and his friends they would meet again in Shibuya, this video is not connected to that. So he's basically saying, hey guys, there can be more than one Shibuya. There's world lines. It's okay. Also, like in DDD, they're separated and unsure where they are, searching for each other like before, but this time representing a fun game of spot the colors. So blue-green is Riku's color, and the red-orange are Sora's, and you can see in their trailers that it looks that way a lot.
Yeah.
The blue light is a little harder to notice, and it's telling that Sora can't see Riku's light directly, just like Riku can see Sora's. But the lighting inside the car as more of a backlight. Nearly every shot is loaded with some tiny representation of the other. Backlighting, a stoplight, anything anywhere, they're almost always present in the shot with the other. The sidewalk kind of looks like the Dream Eater symbol that Riku's standing on at one point. I don't know if I buy that.
It could be it.
It could be it. Okay, so Yozora. Yozora being here is one, wild, but two, another link to the whole dream theme that kind of strengthens things both cases. Seen as he initially shows up in Toy Box, the world that's a concentrated rehash of DDD mechanics and themes, and now this, another distinct repeated DDD tells that starts like a dream. It's safe to say something to do with dreams is happening. Following up on that DDD theme revolving around Sora and Riku, Yozora is composed almost entirely of aspects of Sora and Riku. Let's make a fun list. He has two colored eyes, red and blue. His name Yozora means night sky. Verum-Rex means true king. His outfit is clearly Riku, as though Sora is wearing it in Toy Box for no explained reason. He, at least in Verum-Rex, wields an arrow gun and a broadsword, like Sora and Riku. Interestingly, he also can't seem to save the Kairi character. Dang. Timers. As we already pointed out, timers are always located in the right hand within the actual World Ends With You game, and when the Dream World's DDD, it's on the left. What a strange specific detail only found within Dream Worlds. Hey, Sora, what's you doing when you woke up after? He looks at the palm of his left hand. But it doesn't show a timer either.
Right.
So I don't know what their super point is there, but... And now we're into a part of the theory called bonus strangeness.
Bonus.
The general takeaway with KH3 is that we're really not being shown the full picture. It's like trying to put together a puzzle. We have all these pieces, and there's no picture on the dang box. That said, These are several of those pieces that can't be ignored, but don't really fit into any little neat answer. We just don't have all the context to put together what these things could mean in new territory. Stuff that makes you go, huh?
Huh?
But we're noting it down anyway. Okay, so 2.9. So we're taking note of 2.9 generally because, as it stands, we can't be entirely sure, but a lot of the repeated dream patterns and tells appear in Olympus as much as everywhere else. But for lack of better context and information, we latched onto the definite drop point we could identify in Riku's hair change and move forward. But what we found suspicious is a bit too consistent to ignore. So for one, the end of Dream Drop Distance, Sora dives into the realm of sleep to say goodbye to his friends, the Dream Eaters. You play the drop as the credits and see your friends. We just want to put a mental pin in the fact that we ever actually see him come back out of one. In 2.8, we only get to see his return. That's true.
So you're saying like it could have never actually started. Like,
We could have been in a dream realm before Olympus, even.
Right.
They picked that part because they were like, that's where there's a drop, but he could have already been in a dream, the dream realm, the sleeping realm. Past this, we have Goofy's sudden memory of Yen Sid saying, "May your heart be your guiding key," while Donald and Sora have no idea what he's talking about, implying this either happened before or perhaps was influenced in some way, seen as it becomes an incredibly important and powerful phrase from here on out. In Olympus, we have flow motion and attraction flow, both very dream-related in their own right. And then we have more forgetfulness, not just from Sora, but Hercules, too. They're talking about how Hercules says, "Sora, is there a reason you guys are visiting?" And Goofy says, "Sounds like somebody forgot." And Sora says, "Oh, yeah, I just took my time remembering." That's not too out of character, but then in Kingdom Hearts 2, Hercules says, "I didn't hesitate to give my life for Meg's, and then I remembered. A true hero is measured by the strength of his heart. I'll never forget that again." But he does. "Yeah, do you remember the last time we were together? You were feeling down and out. How'd you get your strength back? When you jumped in and saved Meg?" And Hercules goes, "That's tough. All I know is she was in trouble. Suddenly I wanted to save her all my heart, but it's not like I could tell you how." So he knew how after the end of KH2, but then here he doesn't.
Yeah.
I just think that's poor writing.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's I don't know. Apparently there are other drops. Oh, I forgot about this one. Yeah, in Corona, Marluxia puts Sora to sleep. However, he wakes up in the same way that Riku does when he drops
That's
in
true.
the World of Darkness.
I forgot about that.
Yep, I did too. I think we were too distracted when playing through the game that the plot points of Tangled didn't make sense.
Yeah.
It plays out exactly as did for Riku. It transitions from the black screen. They're being called out to wake up, and we have a close-up of the face. The only thing different here is Sora gets a lovely bath from Maximus. Now, there's one more similar instance of this during the Caribbean when Sora wakes up on the beach. Sora? And this is after falling into water, our common substitute for darkness. Twice is a coincidence, but 3 times is a pattern. We can only speculate that these instances are other added drop points each time with Sora going further into sleep. With each new layer, the dream effects crank up. For example, the start of Pirates of the Caribbean, Sora can't breathe or speak underwater despite his best efforts. To boot, Donald and Goofy are gasping for air as the ship resurfaces. But after the supposed dive, he can talk, breathe, and do whatever he wants underwater with no problem. That's true too, Jace.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, man, how much more do we got of this?
We got about 30 pages, 30
Whew.
pages.
Do you want to read this True Kingdom Hearts part for
Yeah,
me?
True Kingdom Hearts. As a refresher, is an important difference between the yellow Kingdom Hearts versus the blue True Kingdom Hearts. For starters, there's more than one Kingdom Hearts, and most Kingdom Hearts we've seen thus far have been artificially made. In Kingdom Hearts 1, it was made from the hearts of worlds, and in Kingdom Hearts 2, it's made from the hearts of people, like when you're killing the Heartless and it releases them.
Right.
Both of these cases have resulted in an incomplete Kingdom Hearts, a door that leads to it, and a yellow heart. Notably, these are the only versions of Kingdom Hearts Sora has ever personally seen. But why would the one from KH3 have the same color as the incomplete version? So basically just shows the different types that we've seen previously. And that the KH3 one is the one of the incomplete. So it's also worth noting that in 358/2 and BBS were released 1 year apart, being in development at the same time. The change to blue for BBS was intentional. So basically saying like, if they're made at the same time, it's not just a design change. Like, oh, we just decided to make it blue. Like it's purposeful. And then we have another interview question. Says, please tell us something you won't forget about the development process. He said, I've been involved in the series a long time, so I thought I had more or less everything figured out. But this time around, I learned for the first time that the real Kingdom Hearts is not blue, but yellow. So it's like we know for sure that yellow Kingdom Hearts summoned in KH3 was incomplete. We know for sure that blue Kingdom Hearts in KHX was the real, true Kingdom Hearts. We know that even the VFX director thought the same. We know for sure that up until BBS 10 years ago, in-universe Kingdom Hearts was blue. The question changes from why is KH3's Kingdom Hearts yellow and not blue, and becomes why did the true Kingdom Hearts change from blue to yellow? Why is the true Kingdom Hearts the same color as the incomplete one? It might be wholly unrelated to the theory at this point, but it's still mystery worth noting, and so we moved it to bonus.
That's interesting, actually. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, because I was with them, I thought the real Kingdom Hearts was blue, and so did the VFX director. But apparently, he learned it's yellow. So Nomura's changing colors on everybody.
Right.
So now they talk about rage form, which, basically talking about how rage form's not anti-form, which is weird. But then it's also weird that
Yeah, so basically they're saying like rage form, like they're like, oh yeah, rage form is an anti-form, and then they're like, okay, well, it could be rage form because everybody's already died, right?
right.
Like he hasn't had anything to turn him into rage except for he's getting beat up in the fight, like game mechanic, right? But the idea is that even in previously, anti-form had like its like lore, right?
Right.
So, and Nomura's talked about it previously. So it's basically saying that, like, the mind forgets, but the heart, like, always remembers, and that he's remembering that, and that's what's just causing him to go into rage form. So, the question, there's a form that appears called rage form, which reminds us of anti-form from KH2. What is the setup behind that? The forms in this title are very different from that of KH2, so we decided to change all the names. Rage does indeed have characteristics that are reminiscent of anti, but it's basically a separate thing setup-wise. Anti is based on Sora getting completely stained in darkness. Rage doesn't quite go as far. It's based on him going into a rampage state, controlled by feelings of anger.
Yeah, my problem with rage form is that I get it. Enlighten me. That's the problem with rage form. Is
Yeah.
It's like it's not darkness, it's rage, but he says enlighten me and he goes in the rage form, not anti-form. So yeah.
Well, then it's like you have to get your light back.
Right. Yeah.
A little weird.
Riku's Halo. Our next point of interest is actually the Proud Mode ending screen. The art itself is just the Kingdom Hearts Union Cross anniversary done up with a nice background. Nothing new to report. But really, there's one tasty little detail. Riku has a halo. Not exactly like a literal angel halo, but a symbolic halo, an encirclement around the head, usually used to represent light or some kind of enlightenment or power. For the sake of argument in that it's there to simply make the image look good, it's definitely a neat composition. It draws the eye well, it's offset in a way that's weighted well too. This is all fine and good. But just because it's a good art comp doesn't mean there isn't intent behind it. In fact, symbolism is usually chock full of intent. Speaking of intent, this design is actually not used that often for anything else. In fact, this patterned encirclement is used one other time on one of the most symbolically loaded scenes in the game, on the mirror within the dive to the heart. A bit faint with the angle, especially when the focus here is on Sora, but
And you can see the halos.
it's definitely there. So Sora passes through it, and what do we get the other side? We get Riku. Riku is the light in the dark.
So Riku Nort might actually be two different Rikus. The Riku Nort we see in San Francisco is distinctly different in attitude compared to how he acts later on in KG. He's calm, smug, more calculated, and skeptical of plans, but rolling with them anyway. The Riku Nort we see later was prideful, brazen, taunting, and basically battle-hungry. Brat, 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 brat. Just how Repliku acted during Chain of Memories. Not to mention they're literally wearing two entirely different outfits, and I can't say I spot a dark mode suit under that coat. Not that we could just put it on later, I guess. So seeing as KH3 has done a thorough job of letting audiences assume and fill in the gaps, it's very likely that in this case of leaving just enough connection to let you think that it's a singular Riku. In San Francisco, Sora and company assume that he must be Riku when possessed by Ansem. A sound reasoning, and he doesn't entirely deny it, but leaves it open. This seems to happen a lot. Later, Mickey also comes to the same conclusion, voiced exactly the same way. This Riku also doesn't deny it. This is easy for us, the audience, to make the connection and fill in that gap. We're led to do so purposefully, whether it's correct or not. So later, when it proves to us that it's not, in fact, not Riku when he was possessed, but Repliku, which makes sense with his behavior, this throws any and all spoken word out of the window. Characters can be wrong. This can be assumed incorrect, and they can even lie. So that leaves us with whatever contextual clues it shows us instead. Considering that the same Riku were shown later... Wait, the same Riku were later shown...
Considering if this is the same Riku.
Okay. Considering if it is the same that's shown in KG, this conversation with Pete and Maleficent in San Francisco, a world brought up both time travel and recreating things in data, doesn't add up. So he says, overstep and darkness will consume you again. What an interesting thing to say. I shall do anything I please, as you should. Oh, I intend to. Who's he? Friend of yours? Though I could tell you. She says, yes, though I couldn't tell you from when. Basically saying that Maleficent, knows.
Right. Which would mean it's Ansem, it's Riku Nort.
Yeah.
But the other one is clearly the replica.
Yeah.
He speaks very knowingly of Maleficent and past actions from Kingdom Hearts 1, while also hinting at hidden motives that otherwise aren't addressed. This sits especially strange thrown in the face of what we see later from who we know to be Repliku. That and Maleficent's response seems to indicate it's at least a Riku she has known, while also suggesting that she was aware that Riku Nort wasn't who he said he was when Riku possessed by Ansem SOD. We also have a stark contrast in how they respond to being the real Riku, which is honestly pretty telling. The Riku in Big Hero 6 has no issue with it. He even goads them for needing to figure it out. And that means he's not really Riku. Smarter than you look. When Repliku at the KG fights it to his little dying breath. No, you're not real. I'm the real one. To boot, there is one unexplained scene within Ricotta that is a perfect chance to nap Data Riku. It shows up suddenly, much to the confusion of Mickey, Jiminy, and others. And it's a scene with what Ansem's Secret of Darkness looks like in his brown, when it's just his heart.
Yeah.
It's like the brown cloak thing. And Riku, and they're stepping into a portal. The scene ends here with a follow-up from Jiminy saying how this never happened, or at least he didn't write it in the journal at all. So we're left with this. Riku Nort 1. Data Riku. Organization coat, calm and smug demeanor, doesn't get his hands dirty, calls plans into question, based entirely around data and uses actual bug blocks from Recoded. No qualms with not being real, has ulterior motives. Riku Nort 2, Repliku. Dark mode suit, aggressive and cocky attitude, very ready to get his hands dirty, follows orders willingly, insists he's real till death, actually confirmed to be the Repliku, loves long walks on the beach. So what they're trying to tell us, Jason, what these guys are trying to tell us is that there's Riku.
The actual Riku. There's the spirit or heart of Repliku inside Riku. Yep.
There's the Repliku we defeat at the Keyblade Graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Data Riku, who's in Big Hero 6.
Yeah, so Data Riku from Recoded has been like, that Riku's been nabbed. And now he's in the real world. And
so they're trying to say there's 4 Rikus in this game.
Yeah.
Wow.
You could even say 5 if you're like, oh, it's Riku and then like Dream Riku.
The idea of Riku leaving to do whatever he wants only to be replaced isn't out of the question either, seen as Demix completely vanishes and Vex and defects. Data Riku wouldn't be the first.
Nominee. The next part is about Best Girl Nominee.
We generally learn 2 rules about how to bring people back via replicas. That 1, the replica bodies need to be the right memories loaded in it, and 2, the heart has to be otherwise assimilated, needs a strong emotional reaction to spark it back into being. The following strictly what's visually presented to us, we're led to believe everyone got their happy ending at the cost of Sora's sacrifice. But assuming this is chronological whatsoever, Kairi's still missing at this point. So how is Naminé here at all when they would need Kairi's heart to pull from her to begin with? Nomura has since elaborated a little bit on what happens with Naminé, though it still doesn't really answer the question. How did Ansem the Wise and Ienzo and the others move Naminé's heart into a vessel without Kairi being there? Answer. When Kairi was defeated the first time in the Keyblade Graveyard, Namine's heart was thrown into the final world, right? And Namine's heart was also thrown out just before the final battle when Kairi was hit by Xehanort's attack. I do plan to show the details of what happened after that.
Oh, man.
So while we still don't know how or why she's here, Kairi's heart is still a mystery. It's at least knowledge that we don't have all the info and should be shown somewhere down the line. Speaking of Kairi, Shion, please explain. Shion says, Kairi will be all right. I can feel it. Not only is Shion's return not fully explained or made a whole lot of sense of what we know, she has some newfound ability to sense Kairi. And then, Ultimania update. Nomura has since stated in an interview that upcoming DLC will go into Shion and how she's here, so hooray. It's not beyond Kingdom Hearts to pull something like this out of the blue, like Riku's weird stinky darkness smelling ability that conveniently disappeared. He was embarrassed. But given the amount of suspicious activity surrounding Kairi to begin with, it's not hard to believe something purposeful is being done here as well.
Yeah.
Stinky darkness ability. 2 Keyblades.
Yeah.
2 Keyblades
This
is what
part's weird.
Can you read this line and try to do the Axel voice?
I can try. One of the bigger head scratchers of the game is how in the god dang hell does Roxas have 2 Keyblades?
We know from previous games that both Sora and Roxas were able to wield 2 Keyblades due to Ven's heart being inside them. Now with Ven restored, there's no way either of them to dual wield, and yet we also happen to know full well Nomura knows his own lore and pre-established rules, seeing as he made direct reference to it in Utada's cover art for Face My Fears. You know, where she wields 2 Keyblades. He directly comments on it in his countdown post. He said, 7 days ago, this is the last countdown picture. Today, Face My Fears, the OP and EDC go on sale. I myself drew the cover art. The fact that she has 2 Keyblade must mean she must have 2 hearts. Oh no, the character limit, Nomura. This is one more example on the long list of examples where the game presents you with something without explicitly calling attention to it and lets you assume what you will. Oh, Roxas has always had Oathkeeper and Oblivion. This is normal, your brain says. Of course, when he makes his big comeback, he'd have his iconic look. But if we know the rules and Nomura knows the rules, who's wielding 2 blades? Well, still Roxas, but maybe 2 of them, kind of, perhaps. This isn't any hard answer, but this is something that should definitely be kept in mind. Another scene where something is brought up and never touched on again. We have Ienzo still wheeling away, trying to bring back Roxas by constructing his heart with data, something touched on in San Francisco. Ienzo says, we've come a long way towards reconstructing Roxas' heart, but a vessel without that. It's the backup plan or nothing now. He's very far along, but the most pressing issue is the matter of finding a body. Then he's straight up given a vessel, dropped right at his feet. Problem solved, right? Sure, if we didn't see Roxas' heart leave Sora's body at the sight of Axel Sheet in danger. Assuming, of course, this is Roxas' heart in the first place, though there's always room for more trickery. Seeing as Roxas somehow ascends from the heavens at the speed of light, this arrival calls a lot of things into question. So what happened with his nearly complete data heart? Why has he got 2 Keyblades? Is it the data heart? Is it inside him? How did he even get here?
Lots of questions.
Right.
Here we go. I'm reading this word for word for you guys. Have we got a ride for you? Or a train metaphor, if that's what you're into. So imagine you're riding on a train. The train is set to follow the tracks, right? This train cannot change the tracks, and just like fate, it can only follow what's laid before it. At the end of these tracks is a broken, rusty death bridge that's hungry for trains.
Oh my
Your
God.
train. This track is the first world line, destined for failure from the fated fall to darkness. To circumvent this fate, we need to switch tracks before we hit the bridge. So, we fell off the rusty death bridge once and miraculously got a do-over, timeline 1. We are now placed on a kind of dummy timeline, a do-over, made of dreams, until we hit that fated point. But this time, there's an actual rail switch. Hitting that switch and effectively switching tracks is switching world lines, where we carry on happily off the dummy track and onto completely real, avoiding a terrible train accident track. So that kind of puts the whole theory in perspective, actually. I really like that analogy. Because I think a lot of people had a hard time, understanding. But to me, it's like, okay, you're on a train track, you fall off, you die. You get a do-over, but it's a dream until you reach that point again. And at this time, because of lingering will or what have you, whatever the difference was, it goes differently. We have that switch. Does that make sense? Everybody following? Okay,
Everybody
cool.
follow?
It turns out Kingdom Hearts Chi/Kingdom Hearts Union Cross lays out a little more clearly and less train metaphor than you think. In Kingdom Hearts Key, in Kingdom Hearts Key, Ava's mission, her whole running plotline tasked to her by the Master of Masters, was to prepare the Dandelions for the new realm they'd be traveling to. So it shows some cutscenes of the Master of Masters telling Ava this. We now know that what Ava's describing when she outlines this plan to Ephemer is the process of world line hopping. So there's Ava talking to Ephemer, and they say things. But basically, she's just explaining the process to him.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Ava also explains to the Dandelions later that they'll be entering a world like that of a dream. So the idea here is that you live out the timeline up until the point of disaster in a dreamlike world with no memory of the disaster to then connect to a new world line where it never happened. It is after this cutscene that she sends Ephemer off to what she refers to as an unchanged state on another plane, a displaced state outside the world line seated somewhere in sleep dreams. Ava tells us Ephemer is within a dream and that his connection through dreams will allow the player to be pulled into this other plane. And finally, that the Dandelions will need to go into a world like a dream to relive their lives up to the Keyblade War. So to summarize, world line hopping entails being sent to a dream version dummy timeline, relive your life, traumatic memory free up until the tragedy is a do-over. Once you get to the point of the fated tragedy and move past it, it now connects and becomes reality. Now brings us to our next point. So it's kind of explaining how sleeping worlds work.
Yeah.
Which it's something I kind of at first was like, I don't get why going to a fake version of the world helps. But if it works like the way they're saying it does, that makes sense.
Yeah. I think it all, like, the train metaphor would make even more sense if, like, so there's that death bridge, you fall off of it, but then you catch onto one. There's actually, you don't die, you fall onto another one that looks exactly the same and starts exactly the same as what happened earlier.
Okay.
And then when you get to that point, there's like a ramp to go back up to where you were.
Got it. Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
So now the next point, world logos. You didn't think we'd be talking about logos again after the whole, the 3 is shaded in, so that's why it's not really 3. In Dream Drop Distance, we get an interesting dividing line shown to us most are unaware of. When Riku goes into the world that never was, he first enters Sora's dream version of it. Later, he escapes Sora's dreams and makes it back into reality. What gets missed, or passed off anyway, is that only then does the world logo show up for Riku. It turns out there's an actual really neat and explicit reason for this that Nomura explains in the Famitsu interview. The question is, I want to ask more about the world that never was. Is that world a part of reality, or is also a world asleep? And Nomura answers, when that world's logo appears, it indicates the boundary between the dream and reality. When Sora arrives, it's reality and then goes into a world asleep. Riku arrives in the sleeping world, and as you progress and the world logo appears, that's when it becomes reality. Interesting.
Okay.
So Riku even comments on this when making it out of the dream and into reality, and then it shows the world logo. So why do they even bring this up? Is it ever used in the series again? You bet it is. The first time we arrived at the Keyblade Graveyard, we aren't showing the world logo. Ever.
Shit.
KH3 shows us exactly when we make this switch from dream to reality, and it's right after Sora finally manages to save everyone's hearts. With the fated fall to darkness effectively circumvented, time travel / power of waking effectively making it so it never happened, we've now clicked into the new world line, the new reality. This timeline's a real boy now.
Wow.
So that's interesting. I never noticed that. There's so much weird wonky stuff in KH3 with that, like when they do 2.9,
right.
or when they, but that makes a lot of sense. And the fact that Nomura commented on it in 2012,
right?
It's not like it's something he said after KH3 came out.
No.
So that's got to mean something. He wouldn't do that on accident. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This is making a lot of sense.
Right. To boot, who do we know ferries wielders into the new world line? Chirithy.
Oh my god.
And then they show Kyrie's hood.
With the ears.
Kyriathy. The others are ahead. Come on. And it shows Kyrie grabbing Sora's hand in that weird scene where they're floating through nothing.
Yeah.
Kyrie 2.0. So this is their next point. So speaking of Kyrie, we have a much better idea now where her heart has been this whole time. But first, let's start with Naminé. In the final world, you can talk to stars. These stars are the remainders of people's hearts a step before death. But most importantly, Namine, that sweet baby angel, is here. Of course, with everyone having fallen to darkness, you'd expect her to. She was in Kairi's heart after all and says as much. She also explains Kairi being the reason Sora's form hasn't faded. And these things are ultimately true, but something doesn't quite sit right. It's said that with everyone falling to darkness, Namine got knocked out of Kairi, thus ended up here while Kairi fought to keep Sora together. The problem is when? When asked about his friends, Chirithy tells Sora that nobody arrived with him. In the original Japanese script, Chirithy is even more specific in that nobody arrived at the same time as you, implying that yes, people have arrived, but not just now with Sora. So how is Namine already here? It wasn't from everyone falling to darkness just now. Nobody arrived with them. The only way she could be here right now is if she'd already been here. If some great darkness has struck them down once before already. Like perhaps in a first timeline. The next part's called So Where is Kairi San Diego? Would have been a better joke if they said Where in the world is Kairi San Diego?
Yeah.
So far as we could tell, any opportunity we're given to understand where Kairi's heart is, we had turned up empty. Her heart seemed to have been missing the whole time, and by Namine's words, she will return to Kairi once Kairi is recompleted. And if that's the case, with Namine being in the final world the whole game, Kairi's heart has been missing just as long. But where, oh where could it be? Where could her heart be residing? Well, whenever Sora did seem to find her, it was on what seemed to be Destiny Islands at sunset. A sunset a little farther along than the ending of the game with everyone on the beach. What possible place could, other than Destiny Islands at sunset no less, look like Destiny Islands at sunset? It's Sora's heart. She is in Sora's heart and has been the entirety of KH3.
Hold up. How does Lee see Shion when
I think they're going to explain this.
this better be explained or I'm going to be
they're gonna
triggered.
So they have two shots here. One from the ending where Kairi and Sora are sitting on the curved palm tree looking at the sunset. And another one from DDD where Riku is staring at I don't remember who's sitting here, in the sunset. It's obviously less detailed and good looking because it's DDD.
Right.
Comparing these shots, game engine switch aside, the orange fading into blue sky of night, the position of the sun, the framing of the shot is all the same. Where Kairi's sitting, not in her usual spot, seems to even parallel Shion, whose death was so similar. An added bonus is that shot in DDD shows clearly how people would have to turn their whole bodies, just like Namine and Shion did, if they wanted to look at the tree from that point on the beach. Because that was a big part of the sleeping realm theory before, is that whatever everybody's looking at in the ending, it's not Sora and Kairi sitting on the tree.
Right.
Once again, like in KH1, it sure seems that Kairi is inside of Sora. Whatever process that necessitates a world line hop, she helped facilitate it and has been keeping Sora's form together from the start. This also strengthens the possibility of her connection to the mysterious, watery dark side from the beginning of the game, whatever this would imply. Though what this means for the state her body is in throughout the game still remains a mystery. Regardless, with this premise in mind, combing back through the game, there are plenty of subtle hints that make a lot more sense now. Throughout the game, there was always pointed and repeated emphasis on keeping your friends with you in your heart. This isn't new to the series, of course, but every world where separation was evident was stressed over again and again, even throughout the final battle. Sora and other characters would touch their chests and proclaim their connection to their friends. So it shows Sora and Toy Box saying, distance doesn't matter, Andy's part of their hearts, just like my friends are part of mine. Pirates of the Caribbean, he holds his heart and says, but I know what it means to share my heart with others. What's Baymax boy's name?
Hero,
thank you. It's okay, Baymax is here. Sora poking Winnie the Pooh in the heart and saying what matters. I'll be here from now on. Kairi will be all right. I can feel it. Shion holding her chest. So there's lots of different examples of that happening. Right? This last scene especially stood out as strange. Shion, for all her connection to Kairi through Sora's memories, isn't actually connected to Kairi's heart. She shouldn't, so far as we understand, be able to feel what happened to it. She's a collection of Sora's memories of other people and predominantly Kairi. But in the end, the only heart Shion is derived is from Sora's. The only heart she should be able to feel is Sora's. Illustrated clearly how when she died, her heart went back to Sora. If anything, this may give even more parallels to Shion, informing us more on Kairi's strange death. Also consider young Master Xehanort's cryptic warnings from Toybox. He says, The way hearts connect in this world can provide us with a clue. So we made a copy of the world and pulled those hearts apart. I wonder how you'll handle the strain. The strain of what? So early in the game, while still trying to regain the power waking he has yet to abuse, this line stands out as a little strange. But under the context that Sora is currently held together by spit and string, the strain of separating hearts could do for a lot. Especially when there's one heart, the focal point, Kairi, channeling the power of the 7 Princesses of Heart to do it. Like the journal says, they kept Sora's heart from fading. They've just been doing it the entire time is all, no big deal. Speaking of, what would happen if one of these princesses, the ones you're holding the entire existence together, gets hurt in a potentially fatal way? So then it shows the scene where, what's-her-face from Frozen.
Oh, this makes so much more sense. Elsa's sister.
Elsa's sister. I don't remember her name. I need to see Frozen 2. I heard it's really good. Anyway, I don't remember her name. Susie or something. She clutches her chest when Elsa hurts her with the ice on accident, kind of.
Yeah.
And then Sora can like feel it. He goes, oh, I can feel it. I'm really feeling it. This scene suddenly makes a whole lot more sense. So following this logic, when you remove the linchpin that's been holding you together this whole time, what happens? Sora fades away.
Oh my
they show
god,
the end scene.
no.
Remember the literal star-crossed imagery repeated between Sora and Kairi? By the end of KH3, they've reached a situational impasse. Kairi cannot exist and live her normal life as long as she's within Sora's heart, keeping him from fading. Sora can't keep from fading without Kairi desperately holding them together. As is, they unfortunately can't exist at the same time. So Sora, accepting his fate, not wanting Kairi to be alone, he comforts her before pulling her out and back to the real world, essentially pulling the plug early on himself in the process and ending up in Shibuya. And thus, just like the end of this big KH1 parallel seems to be, they part. And that is the addendum for
God damn.
the Sleeping Realm theory.